Chapter 752. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. When you haven't lost something, you don't know how precious it is to have it. Baidu search AI go female sign Xiao. Say www.ai chuxs. So Amin, she used to be a 7-star saint and stood at the top of the cultivators. After her cultivation was greatly damaged, she lost all hope. After being subdued by night's sorrow, she didn't even want to live anymore. But then she saw hope for the next step, so she let go of everything. Besides, after being subdued, she had already lost everything in front of night's sorrow. She did not mind losing anything in front of night's sorrow. All right, as I said before, as long as you are well and obedient, I will let you live a better life. Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and said. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he continued to meditate and stabilize his cultivation. In his current state of cultivation, Night Sorrow did not have to worry about increasing his cultivation. The difficulty was that he needed to spend a long time to stabilize his cultivation. After stabilizing his cultivation base for 2 days, Night Sorrow left the secret cultivation room and returned to his mansion. In the manor, Sikong Chuyu and the other two were practicing their sword techniques. They had all advanced in their cultivation and were focusing on stabilizing their cultivation. Seeing Night Sorrow come out, the 3 women stopped their cultivation. They brewed tea and chatted with Night Sorrow. Not bad. However, we can't rush the step of stabilizing our cultivation. We don't lack resources. Increasing our cultivation isn't difficult. The difficult part is stabilizing, Night Sorrow said. After staying with the girls for a while, Night Sorrow went to see Papa Goo, who was cultivating. After that, he went to the lakeside and started cultivating the spatial crack. After advancing, Night Sorrow still needed to stabilize his cultivation. Once his cultivation stabilized, he could continue to use the Dragon Spirit pills and Desolate Stones to increase his cultivation. When Night Sorrow came back at night, he saw Lin Yuandao. Master K, what's the situation in Clear Sky City? Night Sorrow asked. There's no way to get close. There are more and more spatial soul-devouring beasts, and the spatial turbulence is filled with those things. Lin Yuandao sighed and shook his head. Then let's continue cultivating, Yi Shang said. Night Sorrow's plan was to wait until his cultivation reached the middle stage of the Venerable Realm. Then he would go to the spatial turbulence and see if the Void Protective Air Shield could stop the spatial Soul Eater beast. In addition, Inshi disappeared without a trace. As if she had disappeared, Lin Yuandao said. Maybe she wanted to find a place to cultivate. She shouldn't be a threat to anyone anymore, Night Sorrow said. Let's hope so. I'm just here to have a look. Your cultivation base is rising too quickly. Let me give you a word of advice. Haste makes waste. A solid foundation is important. However, there is no problem with the solidity of your true energy. After talking about Night Sorrow, Lin Yuandao smiled again. The main thing was that Night Sorrow showed no signs of having a shaky foundation. Then, after drinking a pot of tea, Lin Yuandao left. He had come to see how the young master of Tianji Tower was cultivating. Normally, Night Sorrow's cultivation should be guided by Lin Yuandao. However, Night Sorrow didn't need any guidance from him. Then, Night Sorrow asked the girls about Wu Ling concubine situation. Aunt Fei occasionally comes out for a cup of tea. The rest of the time, she is cultivating in the attic, Yang Lei said. Well, I don't know how the clansmen are doing in the Sea of Night Moon. When I have time, I will go to the island and ask Sixth Uncle. Night Sorrow said. He was eager to see his parents as soon as possible. However, when the Night Clan would come out, perhaps only Yi Lingxia would know. After cultivating for another 2 days, Night Sorrow decided to go into seclusion. This made him feel a little embarrassed. However, the 3 girls sensed that Night Sorrow had something to say. Night Sorrow, do you have something to say? Yang Lei asked. Yes, I'm going into seclusion. This time, it might take a little longer, Night Sorrow said. Go. You can't delay your cultivation. If you're tired, come out and rest. Yang Lei looked at Night Sorrow and said. She was happy and a little bitter. She was happy because Night Sorrow really cared about their feelings. She was bitter because Night Sorrow was going to cultivate alone again. I will. The three of you too. Don't be too tired because my heart will ache. You are all my favorite women, Night Sorrow said to the three girls. Aoi and Sikong Chiyu smiled in response to Night Sorrow. Then, Night Sorrow entered the secret cultivation room and the space-time pagoda. He took out the dragon spirit pill and the desolate stone. He communicated with Shao Kong to help him cultivate his bloodline power and soul power. Night Sorrow took the dragon spirit pill and started cultivating with the desolate stone in his hand. Looking at Night Sorrow cultivating, Inshi curled her lips and continued cultivating. She still wanted to get some benefits from Night Sorrow. However, Night Sorrow did not think about that. With the help of the dragon spirit pill and the desolate stone, Night Sorrow's cultivation increased. Time slipped away and 8 days passed. Night Sorrow took out another desolate stone and continued to increase his cultivation. After absorbing the 2 desolate stones, Night Sorrow's dragon spirit pill was not far from being refined. He did not continue to refine the desolate stone. After nearly 20 days, Night Sorrow ended his cultivation. His true chi cultivation had reached the peak of level 3 Martial Saint Realm. His Myriad Dao treasure tome had also improved greatly. Although it was not at the peak of level 2 Spirit Refinement Realm, it was not far from it. As Night Sorrow punched, the scenery in front of his fist changed. Time passed, and the speed increased by a lot. In other words, the quality of the power of Desolates in Night Sorrow's Myriad Dao treasure tome had improved by a lot. For most a new $$ chapter end section, Night Sorrow roared. He was very happy with such an effect. You've improved a lot, Inshi said as she brewed tea. It's still okay. What about you? Night Sorrow asked after sitting down. If you don't give it to me, how can I improve? I can only stabilize my true chi cultivation. Inshi glanced at Night Sorrow and said, You can't take it just because you want it, right? Night Sorrow drank a mouthful of water and said, Can't you have it at any time? You won't lose anything. Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and said, Her thoughts had changed imperceptibly. She felt that there was something wrong with her when Night Sorrow did not touch her. I can't win against you in an argument. Night Sorrow could not reprimand her. After drinking a pot of tea, Night Sorrow left the space-time treasure pagoda and went to the courtyard of the mansion. When he did not see the 3 women in the mansion, Night Sorrow went to the martial arts practice field. In the martial arts practice field, Night Sorrow saw Sikong Chiyu and the other 2 cultivating with the others. When they saw Night Sorrow, the 3 of them ended their cultivation and came to Night Sorrow's side to brew tea on the stone table. 13. Where did you go? You still smell good. Aoi, who sat beside Night Sorrow, said as she sniffed. How is that possible? I just came out from the secret cultivation room. However, there were some flowers on the way. Night Sorrow's heart trembled. Because he was close to Inshi, it might be that Inshi's scent had contaminated his body. It's weird. It's different from the usual fragrance of flowers. It's more like a woman's scent. After saying that, Aoi stood up to brew tea. Night Sorrow let out a sigh of relief. He planned to teach Inshi a lesson later. Wasn't she tricking him? Chapter 753. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, divided by little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. What's this fragrance? If I didn't know that you've been cultivating, I would definitely ask you where you've been fooling around. Love go little say W. Sikong Chiyu came to Night Sorrow's side and sniffed. Haha, don't be like this. I'm going to drink tea. Night Sorrow said with a smile. He was now convinced that Aoi, Yang Lei, and Sikong Chiyu were all very smart. One mistake, and there will be problems. $? Go first. After drinking tea, Night Sorrow found a rattan and said, Are you guys coming? This time, no one said anything and no one stood up. What's going on? Night Sorrow was a little puzzled. We want to improve ourselves, but we're not fools. Don't you guys know your current situation? Nan Liu said. Sigh. Then I won't play with you guys anymore. Night Sorrow waved the rattan and threw it away. In the next few days, Night Sorrow accompanied the 3 girls and cultivated in the martial arts field every day. Night Sorrow cultivated his spear art and intent realm. At the same time, he consolidated his cultivation base. When they had dinner together again, Sikong Chiyu spoke. She wanted Night Sorrow to do his own things. Although it was important for everyone to be together, he couldn't delay his business. Yang Lei and Aoi also had the same idea. They didn't want to delay Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow decided to go to the island in the Realm Sea tomorrow. He also told the three girls that he wasn't sure when he would return. After cultivating for a night, he greeted the Sikong Chiyu trio and Papa Gu. Then, he bowed toward the pavilion where Wu Lingfei was cultivating and went to the lakeside to check on Tianyu. Night Sorrow asked Tianyu to cultivate here in peace. However, Tianyu wanted to follow Night Sorrow, so Night Sorrow didn't refuse. He took the transformed Tianyu and left Sky City through the teleportation circle. After teleporting to Haohai City, Night Sorrow took out a flying ship and headed for the island in the Realm Sea with Tianyu. It was very extravagant for the two of them to sit on a flying ship, but Night Sorrow was rich enough that he didn't mind spending a few spirit stones. He and Tianyu drank some wine and arrived at the island in the Realm Sea in a very comfortable manner. Night Sorrow first went to see Yilingxia. When he saw Night Sorrow's cultivation, Yilingxia was shocked. Then his face lit up with joy. Your cultivation improved quickly and it's solid. That's great, Yilingxia said to Night Sorrow. It's not bad. Sixth uncle, what's the situation with the family? Night Sorrow asked. They'll come out soon. It won't be long. Also, your father has entered the half-step sage realm. The family wants us to stabilize, said Yilingxia. My father has cultivated to the half-step sage realm. That's great. Night Sorrow was very excited to hear that his father had entered the half-step sage realm. We don't need to worry. The Tianfeng dynasty has been destroyed, and Chen Yuan is dead. Night Moon dynasty won't have much pressure to fight after returning, said Yilingxia. Sixth uncle, send a spy to find out the cultivation level of the 7-star saint from the 7-star dynasty, said Night Sorrow to Yilingxia. I've checked. This is the most difficult part. Night Moon can't handle it alone. He's a 5-star saint. If we can't handle it, we can only ask Tianji Tower for help, said Yilingxia. No need. I'll handle this. Don't ask for help. That's all. I'll go cultivate, said Night Sorrow to Yilingxia. You can handle it. Yilingxia asked in surprise. Love, go little say W. Chu, I don't need to ask for help or tell the family. I don't need to rush out either. It's best to stabilize. Night Sorrow nodded. Then, Night Sorrow left the place where Yilingxia and the others were cultivating. Inshi, you handle this matter. The 7-star saint is a 5-star saint. Hurry up and recover, then kill him for me. Night Sorrow communicated with Inshi. His soul power was in Inshi's mind, so Inshi naturally knew what he meant. Just now, Night Sorrow also let Inshi listen to his conversation with Yilingxia, so Inshi also knew what was going on. All right, that's why you don't ask for help. But I want essence energy. I want to cultivate. When I become a saint again, I want to cultivate the wind essence body. At this time, Inshi didn't care so much and directly shouted her request in the space-time pagoda. Night Sorrow shook his head helplessly. He didn't understand what was going on. Then, Night Sorrow went to see Long Xiansheng and drank a jar of wine with him. Only then did he go to Tianji Tower's camp. While chatting with Xiaolan Jun and the others, Night Sorrow heard she cursing in the space-time pagoda. He then closed his soul power, not letting she listen to his conversation with Xiaolan Jun and the others. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow went to the place where he originally camped and set up a tent. Then, he flashed into the space-time pagoda. I've always kept my soul power and my soul power open so that you can feel the situation outside. I'm afraid that you will feel suffocated here, but you will shout and scream. If you do this again, I won't let you know the situation outside anymore. Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and said, Don't. This is my fault. I saw that Xiaolan Jun was too angry, so I couldn't suppress my anger. Seeing that Night Sorrow was angry, Inshi became obedient. Be careful in the future. I can accommodate you for some things, but there's a bottom line. You can't force me to use my soul power to restrain you. I know. Inshi nodded. She really didn't want to bear the torture of her soul now. That 7-star saint is a 5-star saint. Can you kill him? Or sneak attack? Knight Sorrow asked. I can if I recover to the level of an intermediate saint. However, the prerequisite is that I have to cultivate the Wind Yuan body and the Wind Yuan escape. Inshi whispered, Isn't the Wind Yuan escape an innate skill for escaping? Knight Sorrow frowned. The Wind Yuan escape is an innate skill for escaping, but it also has an auxiliary movement technique, the Wind Yuan flash. It used to be useless because I couldn't use it to fight. However, if I cultivate the Wind Yuan body, there won't be any drawbacks. The Wind Yuan flash won't be a technique that hurts the body. Inshi said, In the end, you still want essence. Here you go. Knight Sorrow pushed Inshi onto the big pink bed. After fighting for a while, Knight Sorrow took a deep breath. I'll give you what you want. However, when I want to kill the 7-star saint, if you can't do it, it's meaningless for me to keep you alive. I won't kill you. I'll just throw you into the first level of the space-time pagoda and let you perish on your own. I'll work hard to cultivate. It's my fault today. I won't bare my fangs and brandish my claws in the future. Inshi pulled her skirt over her body and said. She knew that Knight Sorrow was still angry at her for cursing Xiaolanjun today. During this period of time, I admit that I've treated you well. I didn't abuse you or bully you. However, this isn't the right for you to be unreasonable with me. Knight Sorrow said. Inshi nodded and didn't say anything. She could tell that Knight Sorrow was really angry. Chapter 754. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go/Little. I'll provide you with interesting novels to read. If you can keep giving me essence energy, half a month will do, Inshi said. All right, just shout if you need it during this time. Knight Sorrow took out the Sun Dragon wine and drank a mouthful before leaving the space-time pagoda. He walked out of the tent and flew towards the Realm Sea. He wanted to see the situation of the spatial, soul-devouring beasts in the spatial turbulence. About 20 miles into the Realm Sea, Knight Sorrow arrived at the edge of the spatial storm. At this time, Knight Sorrow saw the spatial, soul-devouring beasts shuttling through the spatial turbulence. Look, Chapter LQ, Section M of the W version. After thinking for a moment, Knight Sorrow decided to give it a try. He wanted to see if his protective barrier could block the attacks of the spatial, soul-devouring beasts. After taking a deep breath, Knight Sorrow activated the protective barrier of a peak 3rd grade venerable and entered the spatial turbulence. He then stopped. At this time, the 2 spatial, soul-devouring beasts charged towards Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow stood there and allowed the spatial, soul-devouring beast to crash into his protective barrier. As the spatial, soul-devouring beast crashed, Knight Sorrow's protective barrier caved in. However, it did not break. The 2 spatial, soul-devouring beasts continued to crash into it. The spatial attribute is still incomparable to the sovereign attribute. Knight Sorrow muttered softly and felt a little more at ease. After enduring for a while and confirming that the protective barrier could withstand the spatial, soul-devouring beasts, Knight Sorrow wanted to see if his body, which had been greatly enhanced by the power of desolates, could withstand the attacks of the spatial, soul-devouring beasts. After removing the protective barrier, Knight Sorrow circulated the power of the Myriad Dao Tome to protect himself. Whoosh! Whoosh! The spatial, soul-devouring beasts tore apart Knight Sorrow's robes and crashed into his body. They wanted to drill into Knight Sorrow's body and enter the divine sea. But in reality, the soul-devouring beast was only able to break through Knight Sorrow's robes. It was unable to break through the defense of Knight Sorrow's body. Knight Sorrow waved his hand and punched out with the power of the Myriad Tao Tome. A spatial, soul-devouring beast was sent flying by Knight Sorrow's punch. Knight Sorrow's fist, imbued with the power of desolates, sent the spatial, soul-eating beast flying into the Realm Sea. Soon after, Knight Sorrow held the reincarnation spear and compressed the true chi of nothingness. Then he attacked with the spear. When Knight Sorrow's true energy converged into a single point, the soul-eater beast couldn't hold on any longer. its body was obliterated, and the two halves of its body fell into the realm sea. After that, Night Sorrow began to cultivate in the spatial turbulence of the realm sea and began to fight the spatial soul-devouring beast. After increasing his cultivation, Night Sorrow's nothingness attribute was much more condensed than before. His protective barrier could withstand the attacks of the soul-devouring beast, so he had nothing to worry about. This was the importance of increasing one's cultivation. The difference between a level 2 venerable and a level 3 venerable was only one level, but their strength was completely different. Night Sorrow also tried to change the way he attacked with the spear. When he attacked with the 7-star Glorious Moon Spear, the energy was used on a single point. If he wanted to break through the enemy, he would use the extreme melting. After fighting for 2 hours, Night Sorrow returned to the Space-Time Treasure Pagoda and drank a mouthful of Dragon Sun wine. You're almost done refining just now, right? Let's continue. Night Sorrow beckoned Inshi. It's only been 2 hours. Can you do it? Although I'm anxious, I can't hurt your body, Inshi said. It doesn't matter. I'm indeed anxious. After our Night Moon Dynasty returns, we'll counterattack. The 7-star dynasty has a 5-star saint. This is an unavoidable obstacle, Night Sorrow said. I'll do my best, Inshi said. Love go little say W, Chew, come on. My body is strong, and I've also drunk some Dragon Sun wine. I should be able to do it. Night Sorrow nodded at Inshi. Then, Inshi took off her skirt and went to the big pink bed. Night Sorrow went to the side of the big pink bed and saw In. She pull one of her legs to the side of the bed and attack directly. This time, Night Sorrow wanted to deal with it, but in fact he still fought for a long time. After that, Night Sorrow drank 2 more mouthfuls of Dragon Sun wine and meditated to recover. Not only could the Dragon Sun wine replenish Yang Qi, but it also had the effect of shaking the wind. It was also a treasure wine that strengthened the body. After recovering for 2 hours, Night Sorrow entered the spatial turbulence of the realm sea and fought with the spatial Soul Eater beast. At this time, Night Sorrow was cultivating in all aspects. Movement technique, spear art, true chi, myriad Dao tome energy, soul energy, and true chi were almost depleted. Night Sorrow used his innate energy to protect himself. Using his innate energy, the spatial attribute, to protect himself, Night Sorrow could only withstand the attacks of the spatial turbulence. He couldn't withstand the attacks of the spatial Soul Eater beast because their attributes were of the same origin. However, Night Sorrow wasn't worried. Even if the spatial Soul Eater beast broke through the protective energy, he still had the myriad Dao tome's energy to protect himself. After exhausting most of his true chi, Night Sorrow returned to the Space-Time Treasure Pagoda. How's your refining? Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and asked, I've finished refining, but you can't do this. Wait a little longer, and we'll do it again. I can't hurt your body, Inshi said. Okay, then continue cultivating. We'll talk about it later. Night Sorrow drank the Sun Dragon wine again and started cultivating. He was really going all out now. Not only did he want to cultivate well, but he also wanted to support Inshi. Inshi could tell that Night Sorrow had been cultivating like crazy ever since he heard that the Night Moon Dynasty was coming back and that there was a saint in the 7 Stars Dynasty. After resting, Night Sorrow continued to cultivate in the spatial turbulence of the realm sea. All-round cultivation and improvement were what Night Sorrow wanted the most. Who knew how many Soul Eater beasts had been killed by Night Sorrow? But there were simply too many of them. Night Sorrow just had to travel back and forth in one area to fight, so he didn't have to worry about not having a target to fight. As the battle went on, Night Sorrow's spear art became sharper and sharper. Every spear attack was compressed to the extreme. In other words, he displayed the dominance of the Void attribute as the supreme attribute. Night Sorrow returned to the Pagoda of Time when he was almost exhausted. After drinking a mouthful of Sun Dragon wine, Night Sorrow waved at Inshi. You have to pay attention to yourself, Inshi said as she took off her skirt. It's okay. I want to relax now. Night Sorrow shook his head at Inshi. After giving Inshi his essence chi, Night Sorrow began to meditate and recover. Inshi also began to cultivate. With the help of Night Sorrow's essence Chi, Inshi's wind origin body had improved greatly. Night Sorrow continued to cultivate. Fortunately, Inshi had a bottom line. She controlled the pace of some things and only needed Night Sorrow once or twice a day. Half a month later, Yishan's cultivation was extremely solid, and Inshi's cultivation had reached the level of entering the Saint Realm again. Chapter 755. Genius 1. Second, remember love divided by little. I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Okay, let's go somewhere else. I hope you can succeed. Night Sorrow said to Inshi. If I can cultivate the body of wind, I can also help you with your cultivation. Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and said, you should enter the Sage Realm first. Night Sorrow said. Then Night Sorrow left the island and went to a mountain in the Haohai City area. Night Sorrow felt that it was very quiet here and no one would disturb him. So he let Inshi out. Night Sorrow thought for a while and gave Inshi half a bottle of spiritual fluid of life and spiritual fluid of origin. He also told her how to use them. More? New. Fastest on $X. You really care about people. Maybe this is the reason why your 3 fiancés are so loyal to you. Inshi took the spiritual fluid of life and spiritual fluid of origin and said. Night Sorrow didn't say anything and just smiled. Inshi sat down cross-legged and started to advance. In the beginning, it was very stable, but as her aura climbed, 2 types of energy appeared on her body. Her body would sometimes be filled with green energy, and sometimes it would be filled with blue energy. Yi Sorrow knew that this was a transition between 2 extreme forms of energy. Love go little say W. 4 hours later, Inshi's aura changed. The power of rules appeared on her body. At the same time, the energy on her body also changed dramatically. There was blue and green and blue. Then, it integrated into Inshi's body. Yishang felt that Inshi had changed. Her silver hair, which was originally very bright, had a luster flowing through it like water ripples. At this time, a tribulation cloud appeared in the sky and rolled above Inshi's head. Inshi swung her hands in front of her chest and abdomen. Then, she stood up and took out a long sword with her right hand. When Inshi was ready, the thunder and lightning struck down. Night Sorrow found that the lightning was much stronger than the lightning that appeared when he was advancing. They were not on the same level, but he could understand. After all, one was a venerable level thunder tribulation, and the other was a saint-level thunder tribulation. They were not on the same level at all. While Night Sorrow was pondering, the thunder tribulation descended. At this moment, Night Sorrow witnessed the speed of Inshi, who had cultivated the wind essence body. When she dodged and retreated, Night Sorrow could barely see her figure clearly. He could only see the sword Chi slashing towards the thunder tribulation. The lightning was strong, but Inshi's speed was fast. When she was dodging, she quickly attacked with her sword. With dozens of rapid strikes, the lightning was neutralized. Love go little say co after the lightning disappeared. The tribulation clouds in the sky also disappeared. It was just a bolt of tribulation lightning. However, after the thunder tribulation, there was no colorful light. Only a ball of light fell on Inshi's body. Then, Inshi began to meditate and cultivate. Night Sorrow took out a jar of Longyang wine, poured a bowl, and drank slowly. During this period of time, he had been suppressed by Inshi. If it was an ordinary person, he would not be able to withstand it. However, Night Sorrow also found a benefit. After drinking the Longyang wine, the excess Yang Qi was suppressed by Inshi, and the remaining energy was used to strengthen his body. 2 hours later, Inshi stood up. It's done. My current speed is not far from when I was at my peak. When my cultivation recovers a little, even if I meet Xiala in June, I won't be defeated. Inshi, Senior Xia, is still good to me. Don't be hostile to her in the future, okay? What you have done is in the past. Look at the future. Let go of your hatred and you will live a better life. Night Sorrow said, okay, I won't talk about this in the future. I also hope that you won't embarrass me in front of her. This is the last thing I want to accept. Consider it my request. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, "If there's a need to meet, I will say that you are my friend. I will say that after I was kidnapped by you, we became friends." Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, She did not speak. She only bowed to Night Sorrow. "There are some things that I can and will hide. However, I will not lie to my Aunt Faye and my fiancé. I will not lie to the people around me. However, I will tell them about the situation between us. I believe that they will not look down on you." Night Sorrow said. She nodded. She also knew that this was Night Sorrow's bottom line. "Okay, the rest is for you to slowly recover. I will continue to improve my cultivation," Night Sorrow said. At this time, Night Sorrow's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. However, he did not want to break through now. He was now a peak level 3 venerable. If he broke through again, he would become a mid-level venerable. Therefore, he planned to consolidate his cultivation at this stage. In addition, he wanted to let the Myriad Tao treasure tome catch up and reach the same level. "Do you still want to go to the Realm Sea to cultivate?" She looked at Night Sorrow and asked. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, "Yes. Actually, you can also go there to consolidate your cultivation. If you are afraid of being seen by the Saints of Tianji Tower, we can go to another island." She nodded. She also felt that this was a good idea. After Night Sorrow went back to bid farewell to Xiaolan Jun and the others, he went to the island where She used to live. Night Sorrow and She entered the spatial turbulence in the Realm Sea to cultivate every day. She cultivated the wind origin body, which was equivalent to combining the elements of wind and water. Her attack power was strong. Coupled with the power of rules, she could kill the spatial Soul Eater beast. However, the spatial storm did not train her at all. It only helped her consolidate her cultivation. This situation also made Night Sorrow understand why no saints entered the spatial turbulence in the Realm Sea to cultivate. She's situation was special. She was not training her cultivation, but consolidating it. The effect was still very obvious. Night Sorrow also planned to level up the Myriad Tao treasure tome. Only by leveling up could he use the Desolate Stone to continue improving his attributes. He could not use the Desolate Stone now, because his cultivation had reached a critical point. Before he was about to break through, Night Sorrow looked at Shi. "I know what you're going to say. Don't stay too far away from you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Actually, I also want to go into seclusion. Let's enter the space-time pagoda together." Shi looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Since we are both going into seclusion, let's enter the space-time pagoda. At least it will be safe." Night Sorrow nodded and then entered the space-time pagoda with Shi. After entering the space-time pagoda, Shi made a pot of tea. After drinking the tea, Night Sorrow went to the spiritual jade stone stool to cultivate. Shi also sat on the futon to cultivate. With the dragon spirit pill that Night Sorrow had given her, her cultivation had skyrocketed. Now, she was charging towards becoming a 2-star saint. In the past, she had been able to cultivate to the level of a 7-star saint. She was not a brainless person. She knew that Yishang's luck was shocking and that he was also her nemesis. At the same time, he could also help her grow. However, there was one thing that she could not go against Yishang's wishes. She also realized that Night Sorrow did not force her to do anything. Therefore, she felt at ease. She also knew that she had borrowed Night Sorrow's luck. It was as if the problem of her body that had not been solved for many years had been solved easily, although the solution was a little unorthodox. Chapter 756. Genius remembers love in 1 second /small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Night Sorrow had a good foundation in the Myriad Tao tome, so it was not difficult for him to cultivate and level up. During cultivation, Night Sorrow's body would provide him with energy to strengthen his soul. Then, he would use his soul power and absorbed energy to strengthen his body and the energy in his body. As long as Night Sorrow did not suppress his level up, he could level up while cultivating the Myriad Tao tome. He had been suppressing it because he did not want his foundation to be unstable. As time passed, Night Sorrow's cultivation of the Myriad Tao tome increased sharply. With a roar in his body, the energy in the Myriad Tao Tome surged and broke through the bottleneck of the second level of the Myriad Tao Tome and entered the third level of the Myriad Tao Tome. Then it began to circulate naturally. Success. Night Sorrow's breakthrough ended perfectly. The energy in his body and the strength of his body increased again. Night Sorrow did not get up and continued to stabilize his cultivation. While stabilizing his cultivation, Night Sorrow also started cultivating his soul power and bloodline talent. As for the cultivation of his chi, Night Sorrow did not intend to level up. He wanted to suppress his cultivation and continue to stabilize it. Night Sorrow used 3 days to stabilize his cultivation. When Night Sorrow opened his eyes and stood up, Inshi was making tea and tasting it. Let's go out and cultivate. After drinking a cup of tea and nodding to Inshi, Night Sorrow wrapped Inshi with his soul power and left the space-time treasure pagoda. Then, they entered the space turbulence in the realm sea to fight with the space turbulence storm and the space soul-eating beast. Watching Night Sorrow cultivate, Inshi also entered the space turbulence. She had just become a 2-star saint and needed to stabilize her cultivation. Actual combat was the best way to do so. After cultivating for 4 hours, Night Sorrow returned to the edge of the island. He took out the Longyang wine. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow changed to ordinary wine and drank 2 mouthfuls. At this moment, Inshi also came back. The blood chi in your body has increased again. Your body refining technique is indeed powerful. I already said that it doesn't suit you. If it suits you, you can have it. Night Sorrow glanced at Inshi and said, I'm just lamenting. I don't want it. Inshi explained. She didn't want Night Sorrow to have any misunderstandings because it wouldn't do her any good. In addition, she also understood that if it was suitable for her, Night Sorrow would give it to her because she was under Night Sorrow's control. After recovering for a while, Night Sorrow continued to cultivate in the realm sea. At this time, the soul-devouring beast in the chaotic streams of space had less and less influence on him. Some time ago, when Night Sorrow entered the chaotic streams of space, the soul-devouring beast broke through his protective shield and crashed into him. He still felt a lot of pain. Now, he only felt a little numb. This was the effect of the Myriad Tao Tome strengthening his body and increasing his energy. Every time Night Sorrow entered the realm sea, he only wore battle pants because even if he wore an outer robe, it couldn't withstand the soul-devouring beast's damage. In addition, the soul-devouring beast only attacked Night Sorrow's chest and neck. As for Inshi, she didn't want the soul-devouring beast to touch her body like a loach. However, she could rely on her dodging and attacking speed to avoid the soul-devouring beast's attacks. At the same time, she could send the soul-devouring beast flying and kill it. After cultivating for another 6 or 7 days, Night Sorrow decided to go back to the original camping area because he was afraid that if something happened, no one would be able to find him. Night Sorrow, if your protective energy is stronger, you can wrap me up and I'll take you. We'll have a chance to enter Clear Sky City. Inshi looked at Clear Sky City in the realm sea and said, That's a good idea. But we don't know if the spatial storm only envelopes the periphery of Clear Sky City or if the inside of Clear Sky City is also filled with chaotic streams of space. If the inside of Clear Sky City has chaotic streams of space like the outside, or even more violent, then it's useless for us to enter. We can't even investigate. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and shook his head at Inshi. Then he enveloped Inshi with his soul power and brought her back to the pagoda of time and space. Then they returned to the place where Yi Lingxie and the others were staying. Night Sorrow and Inshi had different thoughts. Inshi didn't care about the outside world and only pursued self-improvement. However, Night Sorrow was different. He had worries and things to deal with. This was the difference between interpersonal relationships and social relationships. Then, Night Sorrow went to greet Xia Jun and the others. When Xia Jun saw Night Sorrow, she criticized Night Sorrow. She was worried that Night Sorrow would be intercepted by Inshi and the enemy forces if he ran around like this. The Extreme Heaven Tower had destroyed the Tianfeng dynasty, the Silver Demon Villa, and even the Western Green sect had been crippled. However, there were too many factions that were hostile to the Night Moon dynasty. Not to mention others, just a few great dynasties wanted to strangle Yi Shang to death. The few dynasties could still afford to lose a high-level venerable. It was also possible that there would be more assassinations. In addition, there were many people in the 9 realms and 18 states who were hostile to the Empyrean Terminus Tower. They were unwilling to see the Empyrean Terminus Tower grow stronger in the future. It was normal for them to target Yi Shang. Knight Sorrow accepted Xia Longyuan's criticism with a smile. He knew that whoever wanted to kill him or assassinate him would be unlucky. The other party wouldn't directly send a saint to kill him, right? With a super fighter like Yin Shi, wouldn't anyone below the Saint Realm die? After chatting with Xia Longjun for a while, Knight Sorrow went to visit Long Xiansheng. This body of yours is very tyrannical. I reckon that even the Fist Emperor Li Feng of the ancient times was at this level. Long Xiansheng glanced at Yi Shang and said, Knight Sorrow had heard of the name Li Feng. He was an expert in the ancient times. His body was his weapon, and his strength was incomparable. Then, Long Xiansheng asked Knight Sorrow if he still needed the Xian Turtle Crystal and the Blood Spirit Turtle Crystal. If he needed, he could help Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow thanked Long Xiansheng for his kindness. He had enough resources now. The Blood Spirit Turtle Crystal that Long Xiansheng gave him last time could definitely support him to cultivate the Myriad Dao Tome to the Saint Realm, which was the Golden Body Realm. However, Knight Sorrow also asked if there were any resources that were of a higher level than the Blood Spirit Turtle Crystal. Long Xiansheng thought for a while. There are some. For example, the blood essence of high-level monsters, or the blood essence condensed into blood crystals after death. They all have the effect of strengthening the body. In the Ice Plains Sea, there is a monster called the Blood Spirit Jiao. In the Desolate Sea, there is a monster called the Four-Clawed Silver Dragon. They can produce high-level energy to strengthen the body. Thank you, Senior. Knight Sorrow bowed to Long Xiansheng. That's nothing. I walk the path of inaction. That's why I don't kill. Your path is different from mine. To go against the heavens and fight for supremacy, that is to kill your way out. Go ahead and do it, Long Xiansheng said. Knight Sorrow then bade farewell to Long Xiansheng. Knight Sorrow had a lot of life spirit liquid, but he didn't want to use it unless it was a critical moment. He just kept it as a backup. LT positive Y version, first $1 post. Chapter 757. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Where? Knight Sorrow asked. Baidu search, AI go female sign Xiao, say www.aichuxs.com. There are 4-clawed silver dragons in the wilderness behind the Silver Demon Villa. They should be a clan, Inshi said. Long Xiansheng said that we don't need to go on the same path, but I don't want to kill for no reason. We'll see when the time comes. Knight Sorrow said. Knight Sorrow took Inshi back to Sky City. He could still cultivate in the Realm Sea, but he didn't want Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi to worry. He was also afraid that Wu Lingfei wouldn't be able to see him. After returning to Sky City, Knight Sorrow went to the training field first. At the practice ground, Knight Sorrow saw the members of the God-slaying team working hard to cultivate. At this moment, the God-slaying squad already had 4 supremacies. Apart from Knight Sorrow, Yin Huang, and Ling Long, Liang Yu had also reached the supremacy realm. Baidu search, AI go female sign, Xiao, say www.aichuxs.com. Other than that, there were also a large number of late void inquiry stage team members. Yang Lei and Sikong Chiyu had both taken the extreme void pill some time ago. After stabilizing their cultivation bases, they had already advanced to the 8th level of the void inquiry stage. Even though Xueling, Ho Jian, Lei Bao, Nan Liyue, and Lei Zheng were slightly weaker, they were still at the 7th void inquiry stage. The others were also at the mid-void inquiry stage. Only a few of them were at the early void inquiry stage. As for those who had yet to attain the void inquiry stage, only Ma Shizhuang, Tang Tian, and Chu Ning had managed to do so. This was not because of their innate talent and hard work. Instead, it was because they had only cultivated for a short period of time. Aoi had also advanced to the 4th level of the void inquiry stage. With the help of the Great Void Pill, she easily reached the mid-void inquiry stage after stabilizing her cultivation base at the 3rd level of the void inquiry stage. After chatting with everyone for a while, Knight Sorrow returned to his residence. He had some matters to discuss with Wu Lingfei. Forever free of S fees equals look at a small d say asterisk. While Knight Sorrow was drinking tea in his mansion, Wu Lingfei came and sat across from Knight Sorrow. You've made good progress, but you still need to rest, Wu Lingfei said to Knight Sorrow. It's the same for Ani Fei. Don't work too hard. Right now, the Eastern Xian region is as stable as Mount Tai. With Senior Long Xianxing around, we will be able to withstand any storm, Knight Sorrow said. Wu Lingfei smiled at Knight Sorrow. It had been many years since someone cared for her, and she enjoyed it. Yishang then asked if there was a way to inform him immediately if he was away for a while, and something happened here. Following this, Wu Ling concubine told Knight Sorrow that he could just make a communication crystal. As long as his spirit power entered a liquid state, he would be able to do this. After explaining, Wu Lingfei looked at Yishang. You going out? Where are you going? Ani Fei, I plan to go to the Supreme River Space again. Last time, I didn't investigate it carefully enough. As an ancient battlefield, that place shouldn't be simple. Love, go little say, Knight Sorrow said. But it's still very dangerous for you to go there. Wu Lingfei thought for a while and said, Ani Fei, I actually have a hunch that the Netherworld world will declare war on the 9 regions sooner or later. Since there aren't many intelligent Netherworld beasts in the Supreme River Space, I'll try to go there again before they completely occupy it and investigate it. There were many saints in the ancient times. If one of them died and left a sacred treasure there, it would be best if we can get it. Knight Sorrow told her his thoughts. Wu Lingfei thought for a while and nodded. You have the time and space pagoda. In terms of safety, unless you encounter a saint, there shouldn't be a problem. Go there. Don't fight. Just look for opportunities. Even though she was worried, she did not stop him. In the past, Knight Sorrow, who was at the Void Inquiry stage, managed to come back alive from the Supreme River Space. Now, Knight Sorrow was at the peak of the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. His body cultivation had also improved greatly. His strength was also on a completely different level from before. As for whether he could enter the Supreme River Space, Wu Lingfei did not need to ask, because Knight Sorrow's attribute allowed him to ignore the suppression of other spaces. Next, under Wu Lingfei's guidance, Knight Sorrow made 3 messaging crystals. He gave one to Wu Lingfei, one to Yang Lei, and the others, and the last one to Yi Linglan. Looking at Knight Sorrow, Wu Lingfei felt a little reluctant. You can use the Golden Phoenix flexible armor as you wish. It won't affect me at all. Don't worry about me, Ani Fei. I'll rest for 2 days before leaving. You don't have to cultivate during these 2 days. You can also relax for 2 days, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. In the next 2 days, Knight Sorrow had a good rest. After knowing Knight Sorrow's decision, the Sikong Chiyu trio did not object. They just reminded Knight Sorrow to be careful. Knight Sorrow also gave the messaging crystal to Aoi. Among the 3 women, Aoi was the calmest. After resting for 2 days, it was time to leave. Knight Sorrow gave the last messaging crystal to Yi Linglan. Knight Sorrow left Little Kong to cultivate by the lake. This time, he had to endure the pressure, and it was inconvenient for Tianyu, who had entered the Sovereign Realm. Although Tianyu wanted to follow Knight Sorrow, he still listened to Knight Sorrow's decision. Then, the group sent Knight Sorrow to the teleportation array. Knight Sorrow, be careful when you enter. If there's a problem with the seal, fix it, Wu Lingfei said. She did not want the Nether Beast to rush out and cause trouble. Then, Knight Sorrow sat on the teleportation array and left the city in the sky. This Golden Phoenix really cares about you, she said to Knight Sorrow. Of course, Ani Fei has always treated me like family. Night Sorrow and Enshi communicated. With the teleportation array, Night Sorrow did not need to spend much effort on his journey. He went straight to the Medicine Valley. After thinking about it, Night Sorrow did not want the people of Medicine Valley to worry about him. He flew directly to the cliff where the space of Supreme River was. Then, Night Sorrow sent Enshi out of the pagoda of time and space. He knew that it was the same whether she was in the pagoda of time and space because the laws of the world and space would detect it. Just like when he went to the void dimension, no one was allowed to bring flying mounts above the 4th level. This is the Medicine Valley, where the entrance to Supreme River is, Night Sorrow said. Golden Phoenix has a great temperament. With Dongxuan's origin in her body, her future achievements will surpass Xie Lanjun and the others. Inshi's mind was still filled with Wu Lingfei, so she did not pay much attention to Night Sorrow's words. The laws of this space are very complete. I don't know if it will work if I bring you in, Night Sorrow said. Wu Lingfei had tested its strength the last time and knew that the spatial passage of Supreme River was very suppressive. This was also the reason why she did not follow Night Sorrow into the Death Dimension when Night Sorrow brought her into the Death Dimension. Now, it was also because Night Sorrow's cultivation base had improved tremendously that he dared to bring Enshi along. Then, both of them began to fly downwards. Night Sorrow and Enshi were extremely fast and soon reached the bottom of the cliff. Come here. I hope my protective shield can melt the seal and let the energy enter directly. If the seal is broken, I will have to repair it, Night Sorrow said to Enshi. Enshi nodded and stood beside Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow took a deep breath and propped up his protective shield before walking towards the spatial passage. The seal's energy blocked Night Sorrow's advance. However, Night Sorrow then performed a spatial rend and cut open the seal's energy without destroying the seal's foundation. He then charged forward and brought Enshi through the seal to the entrance of the spatial passage. Night Moon's spatial rend is indeed powerful, Enshi, who was holding Night Sorrow's left arm, said emotionally. Chapter 758. Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Okay, my speed is not something an ordinary saint can contend with. If we can't handle it, we'll run first. There's no need to retreat, Enshi said. What saint? Nothing much, and you're planning to run. Night Sorrow looked at Enshi with disdain. So what if I'm a saint? If I can't win, I'll run. Am I waiting for death? Saints are also cultivators. Their battle analysis and handling are no different from ordinary cultivators. Enshi looked at Night Sorrow and said, Okay, come closer to me. This way, my protective shield can be compressed and more condensed, Night Sorrow said to Enshi. Enshi did not stand on ceremony. She directly leaned in front of Night Sorrow and hugged Night Sorrow's waist with both hands. Night Sorrow compressed his protective shield and then cut forward. As Night Sorrow's protective shield was cut, his body began to move forward. The energy in the spatial passage pressed down on Night Sorrow, causing his protective shield to shake a little. Enshi also focused and was ready to attack at any time. Firstly, it was to fight outside. Secondly, if Night Sorrow could not withstand it, she would use the power of law to protect the two of them. Even if they entered the spatial turbulence, they would not be crushed by the pressure in the spatial passage. In 2 breaths of time, Night Sorrow rushed out of the spatial passage. Once out of the spatial passage, Night Sorrow began to cut left and right to dodge. There are no saint-level nether beasts here. Protect yourself and let me kill them. Enshi checked and said to Night Sorrow. Then, Night Sorrow withdrew his protective shield and let Enshi out. Enshi could also rush out, but breaking through Night Sorrow's protective shield would consume a lot of Night Sorrow's vital energy. Enshi rushed out and began to kill the nether beasts. Without saint-level nether beasts, there was no pressure on her. It was a complete one-sided slaughter. Night Sorrow also joined the battle. Nether beasts that were not at the late stage of the Venerable Realm were no threat to him. The battle ended in 15 minutes. Almost none of the nether beasts managed to escape. They were all killed by Enshi and Night Sorrow. Collect the crystal cores. These are the pinnacle of the death attribute, nether energy crystal cores. They're quite valuable. Love go little say, Night Sorrow said to Enshi, and the two of them began to collect the crystal nuclei. After cleaning up the battlefield, Night Sorrow took out a jar of wine and threw it to Enshi. Then, he opened another jar for himself. Enshi only drank a little and then put it away. Night Sorrow said after drinking a few mouthfuls of wine, "Last time, I was only scouting in secret. My main goal was to find the spatial passageway. This time, the two of us will search in detail. It's impossible that no experts have fallen in the primordial battlefield. If we're lucky, we might be able to find something." Enshi looked at Night Sorrow and said, "This depends on luck and opportunity. If there's a holy treasure longsword, can you give it to me?" Night Sorrow asked, "What's the level of the weapon you're using now? Is it not a holy treasure?" Enshi's explanation gave Night Sorrow some information. The holy treasures of the Nine Zones world were extremely rare now. Even if there were, they had to be nurtured by themselves. Most of the saints also used spirit weapons. However, because of the protection of the power of rules, the spirit weapons would not break. Xiaolongyuan's combat strength was strong because her weapon was a half-step holy treasure. It was between a supreme-grade spirit weapon and a holy treasure. Night Sorrow understood that it was indeed very difficult for a holy treasure to appear. It was very difficult to nurture it. It had a lot to do with the attribute, compatibility, and so on. After resting for a while, Night Sorrow and Enshi began to move forward. This time, it was different from the last time Night Sorrow had come alone. Last time, Night Sorrow had avoided the nether beasts. This time, he specifically chased after the nether beasts and killed them. Let's see how lucky I am this time. If I can get a Saint tier weapon that is compatible with your attributes, I can give it to you. But if it's not compatible with your attributes, don't even think about it. I still have 3 fiancés and my Aunt Faye, Yishan said. Okay, you can arrange it as you see fit, Enshi said. Then, the two continued to move forward, killing as they moved forward. Night Sorrow felt that the Nine Zones world and the Nether world would fight sooner or later. The Supreme River Space and the Nether world had the same attribute. Therefore, killing the Nether beasts here was equivalent to reducing the strength of the Nether world in advance. Love, go little, say, W. Chu Enshi agreed with Night Sorrow's opinion. Even if she did not agree, she had to agree with Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's opinion also made Enshi understand that Night Sorrow was a big-hearted person. He did not have any selfish thoughts. This was because most people who came in here wanted to benefit themselves. When the two were tired, they would rest in the space-time pagoda. Seeing that Night Sorrow had to work hard to cultivate for a while every time he recovered, Enshi was very impressed. She knew that at Night Sorrow's age, it was very rare to have such a temperament. After another round of cultivation, Yishang stood up and stretched his arms. The bones in his body emitted crackling sounds. You don't have to work so hard, right? You have no opponents in the Nine Zones world, Enshi said to Night Sorrow as she looked at him. This time, we will stop for a few days. I will refine the Desolate Stone. Night Sorrow planned to cultivate his attributes to saturation. When the power of Desolates was saturated, he could use the power of Desolates to strengthen his body again. He believed that at that time, his body-tempering cultivation would far surpass Huang Wudao's Desolate sword physique. Enshi asked when she saw Yishang take out a Desolate stone that was larger and of higher quality than the one she had given him. Night Sorrow sighed and told her about the Golden Growler's corpse. He also told her about the Golden Growler's indestructible soul. If the body is indestructible, the soul is indestructible. This is beyond the limit of lifespan. For a corpse from 10,000 years ago to have such a situation, the situation is indeed complicated. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Enshi's expression changed. This matter was beyond her imagination. Ignoring the astonished Enshi, Night Sorrow began to meditate and cultivate. He knew that there were some things that Enshi needed time to digest. After sorting out his emotions, he looked at Night Sorrow, who was cultivating. And she had eaten the dragon spirit pill and was also cultivating. She was also anxious to recover her strength because this was a chaotic world. YC, Q original chapter asterisk on W, and this time, Night Sorrow went into seclusion for half a month and only managed to refine half of the Desolate Stone. Night Sorrow did not continue refining because the power of Desolates in the Desolate Stone was very rich. Furthermore, the Desolate Stone contained pure energy. If he continued to refine it, his foundation would be unstable. Night Sorrow stopped cultivating. Inshi, who was meditating, also stood up and went to make tea. You've been cultivating for half a month. You're too persistent. Inshi said, our foundation is a bit unstable. Let's continue fighting later and settle down, Night Sorrow said. Whether our foundation is stable or not is very important. Shall we continue? Inshi asked. She also needed to use battles to increase her cultivation. Inshi was also under pressure because when Night Moon returned from the dynasty, she had to defeat the 7-star saint. The 7-star saint was a 5-star saint, so she had to work hard to recover. Chapter 759. Genius 1. Second, remember love, divided by little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You're right. There's one more thing. I've successfully condensed the wind essence body, and it contains a lot of yang energy. It can also help you with your cultivation, Inshi said. Okay, let's talk about this later. Night Sorrow's soul power wrapped around Inshi, and they left the time-space pagoda. Now, the two of them were not worried about encountering opponents that they could not contend against. Night Sorrow had a holy treasure in his hand, and she had the cultivation of a saint. Her speed was also extremely fast. In Inshi's words, even if she could not win, she could still run away. She did not harm herself by using the wind essence escape technique. Without any worries, Night Sorrow and Inshi had nothing to be afraid of. They just charged forward. Night Sorrow used the two weapons alternately. The battle intensity was not high. He used the space-splitting spear to increase his compatibility. When the battle was intense, he used the reincarnation spear. Seeing Night Sorrow doing this, Inshi, who was puzzled, asked Night Sorrow why he did this. She thought about what Night Sorrow told her about cultivating the soul doppelganger. You've already reached this step. You're indeed powerful. I've thought about cultivating the soul doppelganger in the past, but I don't have a top-notch medium. It's too late to cultivate it now. Love go little say, Chuin, she said. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and did not mention that he still had the Phantom Tao Stone. This was because Inshi was not suitable to cultivate the soul doppelganger now. He could not lose his strength. The 7-star saint was still waiting to be dealt with. During the day, they would advance and kill. At night, the two of them would kill ordinary small demonic beasts and drink some wine. Then, they would enter the time-space pagoda to rest and cultivate. After a few days, Night Sorrow collected a lot of alchemy materials and ores. However, he still did not find any traces of an expert's battle. Night Sorrow was not discouraged. He believed that he would gain something. It was impossible that there were no remnants in an ancient battlefield. Inshi admired Night Sorrow's steadiness, because even if he didn't discover it, Night Sorrow was not anxious at all. After setting up camp once more, Night Sorrow intended to charge into the 4th rank of the Exalt realm. He'd been forcefully suppressing it during this period of time, and he felt that there weren't any problems with the condensation and control of his true energy. After taking a look at Inshi, Night Sorrow greeted Shao Kong and told Inshi that he was going into seclusion. Although he was in the same level as Inshi in the Spatial Treasure Pagoda, Night Sorrow was not worried about his safety. First of all, Inshi would not dare to attack him. As long as the soul energy he left in the silver she divine pearl exploded, Inshi would die. Other than this factor, Night Sorrow still had Shao Kong as insurance. As long as Inshi made any strange movements, Shao Kong would bring her to another level. Within the space-time treasure pagoda, Shao Kong was the master. After spending a day and a night, Night Sorrow raised his true energy to the 4th rank of the Exalt realm. His true energy had become much more vigorous. This was a small leap from the beginner Exalt realm to the intermediate Exalt realm. Night Sorrow opened his eyes and took a look at Shi. He then continued to meditate and stabilize his cultivation. After stabilizing his cultivation for 6 hours, Night Sorrow stood up and said, "Make a pot of tea." "Okay, you're probably the only one in the 9 regions and 18 prefectures to use a saint as a maid." Shi muttered and began to make tea. "You're also the only one in the 9 regions and 18 prefectures to kidnap a venerable. By the way, why didn't you make a move when I was in seclusion?" Night Sorrow asked. "Was there a need? If you died, I wouldn't be able to live either, right? I believe that you have a backup plan. Moreover, you're pretty good to me," Shi said. Night Sorrow smiled and sat down at the tea table to drink tea. He was very satisfied with Shi's attitude. When Shi spoke, her soul didn't fluctuate at all. It was obvious that she was telling the truth. After drinking tea, Night Sorrow relaxed his emotions. Shi did the same. She had been working hard to cultivate during this period. Night Sorrow looked at Shi and thought for a moment. "How many of the 20 dragon spirit pills do you have left? If you need them, I'll give them to you. I've recovered 1 rank, so 3 or 4 pills won't be enough. I still have 7. Shi took out the bottle of dragon spirit pills. "You're quite sincere. However, since your foundation is stable, you can eat as much as you want. I can still afford to raise you. Here's another 10. Night Sorrow took out another 10 dragon spirit pills. "You're really rich. I feel like I'm a prodigal when I eat like this," Shi said. Night Sorrow shook his head and didn't say anything. In fact, it was a waste for Shi to eat like this. However, Night Sorrow still had a lot of dragon spirit pills and materials, so he wasn't worried that the god-slaying squad wouldn't have enough. "Do you need me to help you with your cultivation?" Shi asked. "No need. I won't take advantage of a woman. Besides, you don't have to be so nice to me, right?" "You should hate me," Night Sorrow said. "Would you believe me if I said that I've thought it through? The destruction of my cultivation is my own fault. I can't blame anyone else. As for being nice to you, it's actually just flattery. I'm trying my best to live a better life," said Shi. She wasn't just saying this to Yishang, but also to herself. "I don't need any flattery. As long as you're well, I won't do anything to you." "It's not easy to live," Night Sorrow said with some emotion. Then, the two left the space-time pagoda and continued forward. After 2 days, Night Sorrow saw some changes in the terrain. It wasn't naturally formed. There was a deep trench in the ground. "This is a sword mark." Night Sorrow looked down and said. Shi also looked down. "It can't be. It contains wind attribute energy. To be able to fight here and leave such a deep sword mark, it must be an expert. Let's continue to investigate," Night Sorrow said. It was true that they found sword marks and traces of battle, but it was hard to determine where the battlefield was. Because experts were extremely fast, they could travel hundreds of miles in 2 flashes. If one was chasing and the other was escaping, it was hard to say how far the distance would be. "I hope it's a sage with a sage treasure. Let's take a closer look." Shi was also interested. Then, the 2 of them investigated nearby, following the traces of battle. They killed any nether beasts that blocked their way. Then, the 2 of them saw traces of sword chi. After investigating, they found that they were of the water attribute. "Forever O Geo watch small 8 for free," said he. Night Sorrow, "As long as one of them leaves behind a sacred weapon, then my weapon will be secured," Shi said excitedly. "Selfish. Can't you think of leaving behind better treasures, such as cultivation methods?" Night Sorrow glared at Shi. "For me, a sacred level sword is the most useful, but you're right," Shi said. "Cultivation methods are the best. My current cultivation method can only be cultivated to the saint realm. Cultivation methods mean inheritance, which can increase the strength of the 9 zones." Night Sorrow said. Although Long Xiansheng said that he would look for a cultivation technique for him, there might not be any suitable one for him. Besides, if he could obtain an additional cultivation technique, it would bring benefits to many people. Inchi stopped talking because she felt that her perspective on the overall situation was not as good as Night Sorrow's. If she continued talking, it would make her seem inferior. According to the direction of the sword she and the attack, the two of them continued to fumble their way forward. Then the two of them saw a severed mountain range. Chapter 760. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. This is an expert. At the very least, I couldn't do this when I was a 7-star saint, she said in shock as she looked at the broken mountain range. 10,000 years ago, the 9 regions world was at its peak. There were many experts, and it was normal for there to be peak saints, Night Sorrow said as they continued to move forward. As they moved forward, Night Sorrow saw traces of an intense battle. At that time, there should be sword chi everywhere, and gullies extending in all directions. The two of them checked carefully. Then, Inchi called out to Night Sorrow because she saw a corpse on one side of the mountain range. It was half a corpse, with 2 legs and half a waist. This is not important. Let's go over there and take a look. Night Sorrow flew toward the other side of the mountain range gap, and Inchi followed beside Night Sorrow. Then, Night Sorrow saw an unexpected scene. It was a corpse without a lower body, and it was holding a long sword in its hand to keep its body from falling. This is a senior cultivator of the wind attribute, Night Sorrow said as he looked at the corpse. He also saw the storage ring on the corpse's left hand. Then, Night Sorrow found something wrong. The half-corpse he saw at the beginning still had flesh and blood that had not decayed, but the half-corpse here had turned into bones. As if she knew what Night Sorrow was thinking, Inchi said, "This senior must have been injured first, then cut in half at the waist." After losing all hope, he burned all his essence and blood to fight. It seems that his opponent did not have an easy time. Otherwise, his opponent would have taken away his storage ring and weapon. Even if they didn't perish together, both sides should have been injured, Night Sorrow said with some emotion. This was not the first time he had seen such a situation. The Dark Spirit Saint and Life Saintess had been like this too. When 2 saints fight, their strength is almost the same. If one fights with his life, the other will not have an easy time, Inchi said. Okay, take a look at the weapon, and then we'll bury him, Night Sorrow said to Inchi. Judging from the energy fluctuations, this is a Saint-grade longsword. 10,000 years ago, there were many Saint-grade experts. So many Saint-grade weapons were passed down. Shunsang Inchi bowed to the corpse and took the sword from the corpse's hand. Holding the long sword, Inchi waved it, and a ray of sword light cut open the mountain rock beside her. Night Sorrow took the corpse's storage ring, then went to the other side of the mountain gap, wrapped it in energy, and took half of the corpse back, then used the sky-piercing spear to dig a hole. I don't know which side you belong to, but taking your Saint Crystal is a blasphemy, but it can benefit future generations. Night Sorrow stretched out his left hand and took out the Saint Crystal from the skull. Night Sorrow then buried the corpse in the pit. She studied the long sword. The long sword was called the Flowing Wind Sword, but Inchi kept it in his storage ring. Why not? Night Sorrow asked. It needs to be nourished. I can use it immediately, but it's not as powerful as my original long sword, Inchi said. Take the time to nourish it. When the time comes, give me your current long sword. I'll give it to someone. My 6th senior sister has the wind attribute, Night Sorrow said. Well, it won't take long. Half a month will do, Inchi said. Then, the two continued to explore the surrounding area, and the scope of their exploration became larger and larger. This was because it was normal for an injured saint to run 1,000 or even a few thousand miles. At noon on the 3rd day, the two found a special situation in another place. The environment was similar to when Night Sorrow saw the corpse of a life saintess in the death space. It was a lifelike corpse of a middle-aged woman with a blue scale on her forehead. The woman in the middle stood there, and there was a pool under her feet. The pool was not filled with life-spiritual liquid, but with clear water rich in spiritual energy and a small number of soul crystals. Don't move. Night Sorrow stopped Inchi. What's wrong? Can't you see that she's holding a long sword and wearing a storage ring? Inchi looked at Night Sorrow and said, I know. This woman's aura is very strange. She's not from a Nine Zones world. Her corpse is so lifelike, so it's hard to say whether her soul will be destroyed. If we're not careful, she might be possessed. I've seen such things before. Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and said, "That makes sense. I'm not afraid of being possessed. You can hide in the pagoda of time and space," Inshi said. "You don't have to worry about me. I'm afraid that your soul defense is low, and she will try to possess you. If she dares to possess me, she's asking for trouble." Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and said, "Our Silver Devil clan has a soul defense secret technique. Last time, we were hit hard by you, so we didn't have time to use the Deity Ocean defense. Now that we're prepared, we'll be fine," Inshi said. Seeing that Inshi was confident, Night Sorrow walked forward and punched the energy shield outside the pool. It was a kind of energy restriction. As the restriction was broken, the middle-aged woman opened her eyes. "You're courting death for disturbing my cultivation." With a loud roar, the middle-aged woman's aura began to rise. Then, Night Sorrow could not see the middle-aged woman's cultivation level clearly. Inshi held a long sword in her right hand and pulled Night Sorrow back with her left hand. "Get lost. I'll pretend that nothing happened." The middle-aged woman looked at Inshi and Night Sorrow. "I thought you were powerful. So you're only a level 8 supremacy." Inshi's body flashed, and she charged toward the middle-aged woman in blue. At this time, the middle-aged woman also drew her sword and fought against Inshi. The middle-aged woman in blue's sword technique was very sharp. Her sword technique also contained the power of the rules. However, Inshi's attack was strong and fast. She suppressed the middle-aged woman in blue. "If my cultivation level was still here, I'd kill a trashy saint like you in a moment." The middle-aged woman's body flashed, and she was about to leave. "Don't talk nonsense. Part of my cultivation level has been destroyed. What's the use of bragging?" Inshi chased after her. Night Sorrow entered the pool and scooped up the few soul crystals. Then, he chased after Inshi and the middle-aged woman in blue. At this time, Inshi had the absolute upper hand. Because of Inshi's fast speed, the middle-aged woman in blue could not escape even if she wanted to. Night Sorrow did not get too close, because he could not intervene in a battle of this level. Night Sorrow was very happy because the middle-aged woman in blue was still alive. All the resources were still there. As long as the middle-aged woman in blue was killed, Night Sorrow could go and count the gains. At this time, the middle-aged woman in blue was very angry. In her eyes, Inshi was trash. However, Inshi's speed made her helpless. She could not win the battle, and she could not escape. The only U version S hashtag, the other J60 all FF is a pirated version. Night Sorrow followed from a distance. He stared at the middle-aged woman's long sword. He felt that the long sword was similar to the one Inshi had. It was probably a saint-level sword. Chapter 761. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Seeing that Inshi was sure to win, Night Sorrow took the wine jar and drank as he watched the battle and learned from it. A quarter of an hour later, Inshi performed her wind elemental flash and pierced through the head of the saintess in blue while she cursed. "If I wasn't worried about your tricks, I would have killed you a long time ago. Why would I listen to your nonsense?" Inshi's long sword vibrated and completely shattered the spirit sea of the saintess in blue. She then took out the holy crystal. "Good. Well done. Let's stop here." Night Sorrow clapped his hands and said. Inshi smiled at Night Sorrow. She took the saintess in blue's long sword and storage ring and went to Night Sorrow's side. "This girl is of the water attribute, but I can feel that she is not from the Nine Domain world. She was severely injured back then, so she has been in a state of hibernation. Her cultivation has not recovered." Yishang still dug a hole and buried the body of the blue-clothed saintess. Then, he took the spoils from Inshi. After Night Sorrow put away the holy crystal, he took the storage ring and the long sword and asked Inshi, "Is the long sword a saint-grade long sword?" "Love, go little say W. True, yes, definitely. And the quality is better than mine. But you must have prepared it for your Aunt Faye." Besides, the wind attribute is more suitable for me. She said. Night Sorrow nodded and then put away the long sword. Let's go into the space-time pagoda to count the loot. After speaking, Night Sorrow brought she into the space-time pagoda. Night Sorrow opened the Holy Woman's storage ring and found that she was very rich. She had 2 high-grade spirit weapons. One was of the water element, which Night Sorrow knew was for backup. The other was of the fire element. Other than the 2 spirit tool level swords, there were also attribute crystals. There were at most a dozen water attribute crystals, a few wind attribute crystals, and a few other attribute crystals. The most valuable one was the Saint Spirit Stone. In this woman's storage ring, there were more than 20 Saint Spirit Stones and a few hundred extreme grade Spirit Stones. However, there were no upper grade Spirit Stones. Why aren't there any cultivation methods? Night Sorrow said somewhat gloomily. Cultivation techniques are all memorized in one's mind. Unless it's a real big shot or a cultivation technique that belongs to him or her, the average disciple of a sect wouldn't carry a cultivation technique book with him, she said. Night Sorrow then opened the storage ring of the Holy Woman who was cut in half. There were extreme grade spirit stones, some healing medicine, and some materials for refining weapons and elixir pills. It's not easy being a 9 regions Holy Woman. She's short on resources, but she could still fight with her opponent until both sides suffered, Night Sorrow said emotionally. I wonder where this outsider came from. He's really rich in resources, she said. It's not easy for you this time. I'll give you some. Take it yourself, Night Sorrow said as he pointed at the pile of extreme Great Spirit Stones on the ground and the Saint Spirit Stones on the table. You're really giving it to me? Without you, I wouldn't be able to come in. Besides, what's mine is yours, she said as she shook her head. Take it. You need it too. It's good for you and me to increase your strength. Shun Tsang, Night Sorrow said. Then, she took 4 Saint Spirit Stones and 100 extreme Great Spirit Stones. She then nodded at Night Sorrow. You're not greedy. Call me if you need anything. Night Sorrow nodded and sorted out the materials. Night Sorrow was very happy with this harvest. It was equivalent to solving some of his basic problems. The problem of Wu Lingfei's weapon was solved. Aoi and Sikong Chuyu also had spiritual weapons to use. The only thing missing was Yang Lei's weapon. Yang Lei was of the lightning attribute, so there were relatively few lightning attribute spiritual weapons. Why Zizzer fast 3? 6-inch seeing Night Sorrow shake his head, she asked. Night Sorrow didn't hide anything and told her about Yang Lei's situation. Looking at Night Sorrow, she took out a long sword. I happen to have a spiritual weapon level lightning, a tribute sword. Get to her. After you nourish your flowing wind sword, you can also take this weapon in my hand. Then, the problem will be solved. No one will recognize your weapon and this lightning attribute weapon, right? Night Sorrow asked. She shook her head. Unless the weapon was very special, no one would be able to recognize it. Then Night Sorrow mentioned the problem of She's body fragrance. He told Shi not to use any spices in the future. This was simply cheating him. However, Shi's answer made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. She didn't use any spices. Her body fragrance was unique to the women of the Silver Devil clan. This situation made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. He felt that every time he came out of the space-time treasure pagoda, he had to take a shower first. Otherwise, Aoi, Yang Lei, and Sikong Chuyu would find out sooner or later. Seeing Night Sorrow's helpless expression, Shi smiled. She knew that Night Sorrow was troubled by her fragrance last time. Most of the time, Night Sorrow would open up the soul connection between him and Shi. Let's rest for a few days and then continue. I plan to consolidate my cultivation and nourish the flowing wind sword. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, in the past, she was domineering and others would listen to her orders. Now, everything was decided by Night Sorrow and she was already used to it. Night Sorrow nodded. He also planned to continue refining the other half of the Desolate Stone and continue strengthening the Myriad Dao treasured book's attribute power. In the past, Night Sorrow also obtained Desolate Stones. However, because they were stored for a long time and their quality was low, other than the power of desolates, they didn't have much energy. However, he had recently obtained high-quality desolate stones that contained pure energy. While increasing his attribute power, it also increased his Myriad Tao treasured books cultivation. Do you want to try and see if I can help you with your cultivation? Inchi looked at Night Sorrow and asked, Woman, I don't need any help with my cultivation. I can't take it even if you say so. Night Sorrow glanced at Inchi. After being stared at by Night Sorrow, Inchi turned around and sat on the bed. Why don't we rest on the bed? Night Sorrow thought for a while and looked at Inchi. In order to respect you, I didn't pry into your thoughts or your privacy. I always feel that you have an ulterior motive. It's not an ulterior motive. It's just that I still need your essence. Inchi's voice was a little low. You're still not done? Haven't you mastered the wind yuan body? Hearing Inchi's words, Night Sorrow was a little annoyed. Yes, I have. Didn't I just master it? It still needs to be stabilized. It's not perfect yet. Inchi raised her head and looked at Night Sorrow. I don't want to scold you. If it was another man, he would have been played to death by you. Night Sorrow said angrily. You're wrong. The cultivation method of plucking has always been in my hands. If I was a perverted person, I would have been able to cultivate it long ago and surpass that woman. However, I didn't do that. I'm not a person without a bottom line. As for the wrong path, it was because of the competition with her. It was my desire to excel that led me to a dead end. Inchi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that she was telling the truth. If she was a person without a bottom line, Xiaolan Jun might not have been able to suppress her. Chapter 762. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go/Little. Shoa Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Well, the preparation is a small matter. Let me tell you first. I will use the energy of the wind body to enter your body and help you nourish your body. However, you can't control or cut off my energy. If you do that, you will be setting me up. Inchi looked at Night Sorrow and said, If the energy of your wind body enters my body and explodes, won't I be in trouble? Night Sorrow muttered, What's in it for me? I am helping you nourish the toughness of your body and the energy in your body. Your body and energy are strong, but not tough enough. Inchi said. Then, Inchi told Night Sorrow that there was no need for Night Sorrow to do anything. He just needed to circulate the energy in his body naturally. After speaking, Inchi got on the big bed and took off her skirt. At this time, Night Sorrow couldn't care less. He also took off his robe and got on the big bed. They hadn't done this for a long time. The two of them fought fiercely. After 2 hours, Night Sorrow finally finished. At this time, Inchi flipped onto Night Sorrow's body and sat cross-legged on his waist. She nodded at Night Sorrow and started to cultivate. Night Sorrow looked at she who was cultivating with her eyes closed. Then, he started to circulate the energy in his body. At this time, a cool energy entered Night Sorrow's body from Inchi's waist. It circulated with the energy of Night Sorrow's Myriad Tao treasured book. Night Sorrow knew that this was the energy of Shi's wind body. He knew that Shi wouldn't harm him now, so he let this energy circulate in his body with the energy of his Myriad Tao treasured book. At first, he didn't feel anything. Then, Night Sorrow felt that his body and the Myriad Tao tome's energy had indeed changed under the nourishment of Silver Dusk's energy. It had become more resilient as it surged. The intensity of the energy was still the same as before. However, the previous flaws, bubbles, and varying intensities in the energy had slowly disappeared. In other words, Night Sorrow's Myriad Tao tome's energy had become much more complete. An hour later, she withdrew the energy that had entered Night Sorrow's body. She turned over and left Night Sorrow's body, then went to the side to wash herself. Night Sorrow also stood up and put on his robe. At the same time, he nodded at Shi. This was because the cultivation effect this time was very strong. It was equivalent to nourishing his Myriad Tao tome at a very high level. After tidying herself up, Shi told Night Sorrow that she had also gained a lot. While helping Night Sorrow, she had also taken away the flawed energy of Night Sorrow's Myriad treasured book. After she had refined it, it had also increased the intensity of her wind body's energy. This time, Night Sorrow didn't say anything about the benefits that Inchi had gained. This was because he had gained more benefits. Baidu search, AI, Go, Xiao, Shuo, www.ai2x. So on, the two of them began to cultivate. Inchi had to refine the flawed energy of the Myriad treasured book. At the same time, she was nourishing the flowing wind sword. When the flowing wind sword was completely nourished, her strength would increase by a large margin. Night Sorrow held the desolate stone and cultivated. At the same time, he let Shao Kong transfer the energy of his soul power and bloodline power to him. Looking at Night Sorrow being enveloped by dense energy, Inchi curled her lips. She knew that this was the difference in treatment. 2%, forever free to look at small c. Say 7. Night Sorrow was the person recognized by the Space-Time Treasure Pagoda. In other words, he was the owner. The Space-Time Treasure Pagoda would of course fully support Night Sorrow's cultivation. She could only cultivate naturally here. Fully refining the desolate stone, Night Sorrow strengthened his soul power and bloodline power at the same time. His soul power increased naturally. However, the quantity of his bloodline power couldn't be increased. He could only continue to strengthen the quality. Half a month had passed. Night Sorrow's Myriad treasured book's attribute power had increased by a lot. It was close to saturation. At the same time, his cultivation had also increased by a lot. Looking at the white, desolate stone in his hand, Night Sorrow stood up and stretched his waist. Seeing that Night Sorrow had finished cultivating, Inchi also stood up. At the same time, she took out her old spiritual artifact, Long Sword, and passed it to Night Sorrow. I have already retrieved the soul imprint. You can give it to your fiancé to use. It seems that you have made great progress in this half a month, Night Sorrow said as he kept the longsword. Inchi nodded to Night Sorrow and told him about her situation. Some time ago, her cultivation had been greatly damaged. Inchi started to cultivate again. The problems that she had not sorted out in the past had also been sorted out. With the Feng Yuan body as the foundation, her cultivation had not recovered, but she had a good foundation. Looking at Night Sorrow, Inchi hesitated for a moment. She bit her lips and said, "Let's cultivate again. Your refining body has just increased, so it is a little unstable. There are more flaws. I can help you nourish them. At the same time, the power of the flaws in your body will be greatly beneficial to me after I refine it." Night Sorrow nodded and started the second real cultivation with Inchi. This time, the two of them cultivated for more than 4 hours. Although it did not solve the problem of Night Sorrow's newly increased cultivation, Night Sorrow's Myriad treasured book's cultivation was much more stable. Night Sorrow also took a bath. Then, the two of them continued to move forward in the Supreme River space. Inchi's combat power had greatly increased. Firstly, she had been refining the Dragon Spirit Pill to increase her cultivation. Secondly, she had a sacred grade treasure sword. The power of her sword Qi had increased exponentially. Using the sacred grade longsword, Inchi did not need to use the power of law to protect the longsword. She did not need to worry about the longsword shattering. The power of law could be used to attack, increasing her attack power. It was the same for Night Sorrow. The Myriad treasured book's cultivation had increased again. Coupled with the fact that it was flawless, it made his combat power much more comfortable. Then, the two of them continued to kill. When they were tired, they would enter the time-space treasure pagoda to recover. On this day, when the two of them were killing, a nether beast with a gray crystal-like horn appeared. Night Sorrow retreat. This is a 3-star sacred grade nether beast. Inchi looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Can you fight? If you can, I will clear the periphery." After Night Sorrow killed a nether beast, he switched between the space-splitting spear and the reincarnation spear. "Okay, be careful," Inchi shouted and charged towards the nether beast. The sacred grade nether beast had half transformed. It had the head of a wolf and the body of a human. It even had a battle sword in its hand. Night Sorrow knew that the Nether Beast was not a simple group of beasts. They already had a civilization and could forge weapons. They were no different from humans. While Night Sorrow was observing, Enshi and the 3-star sacred grade Nether Beast fought. Enshi's cultivation was not as high as the Nether Beast. However, her realm was high and the power of law she could use was strong. With the help of the sacred grade treasure sword, Enshi was not at a disadvantage. After a few rounds of probing, Enshi began to display her speed. She circled the Nether Beast Saint and started to attack. After a while, the 3-star sacred grade Nether Beast was covered in injuries from Enshi's attacks. Night Sorrow, who was clearing the battlefield outside, could see that Enshi could end the battle at any time. She was using this sacred grade Nether Beast to train and consolidate her cultivation. Chapter 763. Genius 1 Second Remember Love, Go/Little. We provide you with interesting novels to read. 1 hour later, Enshi pierced through the Nether Beast's head with her sword. She had used up a lot of her cultivation, so she did not plan to continue playing. The one and only authentic version. Use hashtag #PISFC is our Pirate G version. Night Sorrow had also been watching for half a day. He had already cleared the Nether Beasts outside. After Enshi threw the Nether Beast Saint Crystal to Night Sorrow, the two of them left for a distance and entered the time-space pagoda. Both of them sat down to recover and increase their cultivation. At night, the two of them ended their cultivation. While drinking tea, Enshi told Night Sorrow that as long as the Nether Beasts were not too strong, she was not afraid. She said that she could fight any Nether Beast below 7-star. At the very least, if she wanted to leave, the Nether Beast would not be able to keep up with her speed. After cultivating the Wind Yuan body, Enshi's speed was not far from her peak. The main thing was that she could continuously use the Wind Yuan escape technique, which greatly increased her survivability. After cultivating for a night, the two of them continued to move forward and kill. Enshi told Night Sorrow to be careful because she could not defeat the 2 7-star peak Nether Beast Saints that rushed out of the spatial tunnel last time. However, she could continuously use the Wind Yuan escape technique, so it was not a problem for her to stay alive. In the middle of the journey, Night Sorrow and Enshi arrived at the second spatial tunnel that Night Sorrow had explored. After killing all the Nether Beasts here, Night Sorrow looked at Enshi. Enshi also looked at Night Sorrow. Now, the question was whether to enter or not. This space should be an Earth attribute space. I don't think it is dangerous. The suppression level is indeed below supremacy. With your ability, we can enter. Enshi looked at Night Sorrow and said. Night Sorrow waved his hand at Enshi. When Enshi stood beside him, Night Sorrow activated the Nihility protective shield and brought Enshi into the space. In 2 breaths of time, the two of them entered a space with very dense Earth attribute. The two of them saw some Nether Beasts below the Venerable Realm. Then, they were swept by Enshi's sword chi and killed. At this moment, Shao Kong told Night Sorrow that there was a fluctuation of spiritual energy in front of them. Waving his hand at Enshi, Night Sorrow followed Lil Kong's guidance and flew forward. After flying for less than 20 li, Night Sorrow stopped, because this was the place that Shao Kong had mentioned. Taking out the sky-piercing spear and stabbing it into the ground, Night Sorrow planned to start digging. With a radius of less than 100 miles, this is a newly formed space. There must be a reason why the space could be formed, Enshi said. This might be the core. Let's dig and see. Since we're here, we can't go back empty-handed. Night Sorrow took the sky-piercing spear and started digging, while Enshi watched from his side. After a while, Night Sorrow dug out a spirit stone, and Night Sorrow directly collected it. After digging more than 2 zhang deep, Night Sorrow dug out a special situation. There was a large yellow crystal with 4 or 5 Saint Spirit Stones around it. Under the Saint Spirit Stones, there was a corpse. Night Sorrow looked up at Enshi. He didn't understand the situation in front of him. An Earth attribute expert died here. This space should be due to his own reasons. It's mainly because it's close to the space barrier, so it mutated, Inchi said. Night Sorrow nodded. The yellow crystal wasn't a saint crystal, nor was it an origin stone. It was between the two. It should be an earth attribute, saint crystal, that mutated after absorbing the power of the rules of the earth attribute. Beside the corpse, Night Sorrow also saw a battle sword and a broken storage ring. This place is relatively stable now. It might not have been like this before. After being attacked by the power of the space turbulence, the saint-level battle sword was left behind, but the storage ring was torn apart by the turbulence. The energy here is dense because of the spirit stones in his storage ring. We came too early. After tens of thousands of years, the mutated origin stone will evolve into a space origin stone, but the effect is not bad now, Inchi said. If we take away the spirit stones and the mutated origin stone, this space will have no future. We can't do anything about it, Night Sorrow said. We have to take it away. We don't know what the future will be like. If the Nether Beast takes it away, we'll suffer a great loss, Inchi said. Night Sorrow nodded and took all the resources here. He also put the battle sword into his storage ring. The difference in attributes didn't mean much to him, but he couldn't leave the resources to the Nether Beast. The Supreme River Space was a forbidden area to the 9 Regions world. Only Night Sorrow could enter here, but to the Nether Beast, it was no different from its backyard. After taking the Origin Stone and the Spirit Stones, Night Sorrow and Inchi walked around the area. This newly formed space was very barren. There were no refining materials or alchemy materials. Night Sorrow looked at the oppressive space and sighed. This space would be like this in the future. There was no possibility of development. Then, Night Sorrow and Inchi returned to the Supreme River Space and began to move forward. Other than hunting the Nether Beast, Night Sorrow and Inchi cultivated in the Time Pagoda. Sometimes, Inchi would help Night Sorrow nourish his Myriad Tao Tome. A month later, Night Sorrow's Myriad Tao Tome had reached the peak of the 3rd level of the God Refinement Realm. At the same time, his elemental power had reached saturation. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow decided to use the power of Desolates to strengthen his body. By then, his body's strength would increase by a lot. After greeting Inchi and informing Little Kong, Night Sorrow went into seclusion. After stabilizing his emotions, Night Sorrow circulated the power of the Myriad Tao Tome. It rushed into his flesh, tendons, bones, and marrow. As the power of Desolates entered his arms, Night Sorrow's arms moved rhythmically. His robes rotted and turned to dust. That was the erosion of the power of time. The pain of strengthening the body was very unbearable. Night Sorrow's sweat flowed down his face, and his body trembled. Inchi was shocked. She knew what was going on. She knew that Night Sorrow was strengthening his body. She had never heard of such strengthening before. She also knew that Night Sorrow was in pain. She could tell from his expression. After 4 hours, Night Sorrow finished strengthening his arms. After strengthening his arms, Night Sorrow went on to strengthen his legs. Then, the combat robes on his legs slowly turned to dust. Looking at Night Sorrow's sweaty face, Inchi wanted to help wipe it off. However, she realized that she couldn't move her body. She couldn't move at all. Looking up, Inchi knew that the space-time treasure pagoda was guarding her, preventing her from getting close to Night Sorrow. Helpless, Inchi could only sit down and continue watching Night Sorrow cultivate. After strengthening his legs, Night Sorrow went on to strengthen his chest and back. He planned to finish strengthening in one go. After his robes were destroyed, Night Sorrow's body was naked in front of Inchi. Looking at Night Sorrow's strong body, Inchi blushed. She never thought that she would have a man. Chapter 764. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with interesting novels to read. In the world of cultivation, the age of a cultivator was not very clear because those who succeeded in cultivation had a lifespan of thousands of years. A few hundred years was nothing compared to a long life. For example, ordinary people were considered old when they were in their 40s or 50s. However, in the eyes of high-level cultivators, their lives had just begun. Appearance was the main factor to determine whether a cultivator was outstanding or not, because their appearance would not change after reaching the void inquiry stage. Looking at Knight Sorrow's body that was not plump but full of beauty, she was a little absent-minded. She experienced the saying, fate plays tricks on people. Today's scene was beyond her wildest dreams. She was actually pressed down by a man who looked like a child to her. Knight Sorrow was strengthening his body with all his might. After strengthening his head, his whole body was also strengthened. However, he did not get up. He circulated the outer chapter of the Myriad book and strengthened his own treasures as well. He wanted to make sure that there were no blind spots on his body. Looking at the trembling, huge bird on Knight Sorrow's waist, she blushed. She knew that she might have to suffer again. After strengthening that part of Knight Sorrow's body, his combat power would also become stronger. Knight Sorrow used nearly a day to strengthen his body. His body was also covered in sweat. Looking at the ashes around him, Knight Sorrow went to the pool to wash himself. He directly wrapped the dirty water with energy and threw it out of the time and space pagoda. First release. So after putting on his combat pants, Knight Sorrow sat opposite Shi. He took a cup of tea that Shi poured for him and drank it. How far have you cultivated your body? Shi asked. I've heard of the heavenly desolate sword body in the past. My current body should have surpassed that level. However, I don't have a name for it yet. Knight Sorrow said. The current you is definitely the #1 person in the 9 regions in terms of body achievements. Shi looked at Knight Sorrow's chest that was filled with energy and said, Come and help me test my strength. Don't use the Saint Grade sword. Use your old sword. Knight Sorrow took out Shi's old sword and handed it to her. How do we test it? Shi asked. She didn't want any misunderstandings. The consequences of angering Knight Sorrow would be severe. Yishang pointed at his chest and asked she to start the experiment with a Venerable Realm cultivation base from Venerable Realm Level 1. As for whether or not he would be injured, Knight Sorrow was not worried. Even if his chest was pierced, he would not die. Even if his heart was pierced, it would be instantly repaired by the energy in his body. He would be fine. Shi nodded and began to cooperate with Knight Sorrow to test the speed of her body. Even when Shi unleashed the power of a 3rd grade honorable, she was still unable to pierce through Knight Sorrow's physical defense. This was only the physical defense. Knight Sorrow had yet to unleash the energy of the Myriad Dao Tome. Then, Shi used the cultivation of a level 4 venerable to assassinate him. Her long sword pierced in 1.5 inches, but it was blocked by Knight Sorrow's muscles. Shi took a step back. Knight Sorrow was injured. She was afraid that Knight Sorrow would be angry. However, she was stunned. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the wound on Knight Sorrow's chest quickly healed. Knight Sorrow lowered his head and pondered. He realized that his body could ignore attacks below the same level of cultivation. However, attacks above the same level could be broken. At this moment, Knight Sorrow activated the energy of the Myriad Dao Tome and merged it into his body. He shouted at Shi again, and let's do it again. Then, Shi unleashed the power of a level 4 venerable to attack Knight Sorrow again. This time, her long sword only pressed in 1/2 inch into Knight Sorrow's chest. However, it did not pierce through. Knight Sorrow nodded at Shi again and asked her to increase her cultivation to attack. Shi unleashed the power of a level 5 venerable and held a spiritual weapon. However, she only managed to pierce in 1.5 inches. That's it. Knight Sorrow looked at his recovered body and put on his outer robe. What exactly are you cultivating? Shi did not understand. She had never seen a cultivator who could cultivate his body to such an extent. You've only seen my current body's achievements. You don't know how much pain I've gone through to cultivate this technique. Yishang sighed with emotion. I can imagine that your current body should have a name, right? Shi asked curiously. Not yet. The name of the 7th rank is Indestructible Golden Body. It's not considered a successful cultivation yet. Knight Sorrow took another sip of tea and said, Indestructible Golden Body. This name is so domineering. You will have no problem. Now, you can completely ignore the attacks of cultivators with lower cultivation than you. Inshi said, my current situation is a little different from the indestructible golden body recorded in the technique. Because I added the power of desolates, my power should be much stronger than what is recorded in the technique. It's considered a mutated, indestructible golden body. Night Sorrow said, that Huang Wudao's body is called Desolate Sword Body. It's more appropriate for you to call it Desolate Indestructible Golden Body. Inshi said, Desolate Indestructible Golden Body? Isn't this name a little too big? How can I call it Desolate Indestructible Golden Body? Night Sorrow looked at Inshi. Yes, when you cultivate it, you'll be worthy of this name. Inshi nodded seriously. Then, the two of them drank tea and chatted. Night Sorrow had just finished his breakthrough and wanted to relax. In addition, his Myriad Dao Tome's cultivation had decreased. The main reason was that it consumed a lot of energy to strengthen his body. It dropped from the late stage of level 3 to the early stage of level 3. Then, Night Sorrow stabilized his cultivation for 2 days. During this time, Inshi helped Night Sorrow nourish his body. The main reason was that Night Sorrow's desolate, indestructible golden body had just been strengthened and was not smooth enough. Of course, Inshi also took what she wanted. What made her feel conflicted was that Night Sorrow's strengthened bird had become much more ferocious and ferocious. She could not bear it. In Night Sorrow's words, she did not have a big mouth. If she had to force herself to eat such a big meal, she would definitely feel uncomfortable. In the end, Inshi looked at Night Sorrow with fear in her eyes. She was afraid of Night Sorrow. She was glad that Night Sorrow was not too tyrannical. In the following days, the two of them were either moving forward or cultivating. Night Sorrow's cultivation had stabilized. His genuine Qi cultivation was at the 4th level of the Honor Realm. It was impossible for him to advance in a short period of time. The same was true for the Myriad Dao Treasure Tome. They were both stabilizing their cultivation and advancing slowly. Inshi, on the other hand, was very nervous. She was not far from becoming a 3-star saint. According to her, it was only possible to kill a 7-star saint after becoming a 4-star saint. Cultivation did not equate to combat power. However, if the difference in cultivation was huge, even if one's combat power was equal, it would still be difficult to kill. If one's cultivation was similar, if one's combat power was strong and had a sacred weapon, it would be possible to kill. Night Sorrow reminded Inshi. Although it was urgent to increase her cultivation, it was also important to condense her genuine Qi. Then, Inshi's explanation made Night Sorrow feel relieved. She used the power of the soul and the power of rules to compress and condense her genuine Qi. Her genuine Qi would not be empty. After moving forward for another month, the two of them saw the scene of the great battle again. However, they were disappointed after searching for a while. It was because they saw the broken sky. The battle was too intense. It broke the space and entered the space turbulence. It's hard to say whether we are dead or alive, but the resources definitely have nothing to do with us, Inshi said. Chapter 765. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go Divided by Shao. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Inshi was also helpless because there was nothing she could do about it. We've seen quite a number of battlefields. However, the things left behind by Void Inquiry Stage experts and Venerable Realm experts are not of much use to us. Night Sorrow said, during this period of time, Night Sorrow and she did find a few battlefields. However, they were not saints' battlefields. Hence, they were not of much use to Night Sorrow and Inshi. In a battle between saints, if they didn't perish together, we wouldn't be able to find anything left behind. Even if one party was injured, they would still take away the spoils of War of the Loser. Inshi said, yes, we can't have too much hope in life. Our harvest this time is already not bad. Night Sorrow nodded. After that, Night Sorrow and Inshi approached the spatial passageway of Dongxiang City. Night Sorrow told she to be cautious because there were a few Saint Realm nether beasts at the entrance of the spatial passageway. She thought for a while and felt that it was better to explore the passageway first. If she could fight, then they would decide what to do next. This time, the exploration was not as strenuous as Night Sorrow's exploration because Inshi's true chi cultivation base was greatly damaged. However, the cultivation of her soul power was still the same as when she was at her peak. It could even be said that she had made some progress. Baidu search, shout, shuo, www.aichux. After exploring the passageway for a while, Inshi retreated. There's no way to fight. The two high-level nether beasts at the entrance of the spatial passageway are the two high-level Saint Realm nether beasts that broke through the spatial passageway. At that time, the Saints of the Nine Regions joined forces and still couldn't defeat them in a short time. Now, I don't stand a chance at all. Then forget it. Let's continue to explore other places. If we don't find anything, we'll return. Night Sorrow said. If things were impossible, Night Sorrow would not force it. After that, Night Sorrow and she changed their direction and continued to explore the passageway. Next, the two of them saw more fallen saints, but nothing was left behind. Their weapons, storage rings, and even their saint crystals had disappeared. It's the same for two saints in a row. They had the aura of the nine-domain world on their bodies. After they were killed, their saint crystals were taken away as if they were harvesting materials. The other party is very cruel, Inshi said. It's possible. Low-level saints are the materials. Yishang recalled Wu Lingfei's words. Who would be so generous as to use the saints of our nine-domain world as materials? Inshi was shocked by her own words because this conclusion was too terrifying. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's continue. Night Sorrow was also shocked by this conclusion. He then observed the Nihility Fate Pearl in his divine sea. He knew that if he refined the Nihility Fate Pearl, he would have a place to settle down. Even if there was a war, he would not be afraid. The two of them continued to cultivate as they moved forward. After half a month, she entered the level of a 3-star saint. Night Sorrow's cultivation also improved greatly during the consolidation. After she entered the level of a 3-star saint, Night Sorrow stopped moving forward. Even if she did not say anything, Night Sorrow knew that she wanted to stabilize her cultivation. She stabilized her cultivation for 2 days. She looked at Night Sorrow and asked for his essence. The process was painful and happy for her. After that, she used the energy of the Wind Yuan body to help Night Sorrow nourish his body and energy. Night Sorrow, you're like this now. It's a test for your future fiancé. I don't believe that they can do it if I can't. She did not care about any shame in front of Night Sorrow. Since the matter had already happened, there was no point in putting on a fake appearance. She had the mental state of a saint and was very open-minded about things. You're alone. There are 3 of them. Currently, 2 of them have cultivated to the pinnacle. It's nothing. Besides, I pity them. Night Sorrow took a sip of tea and went to meditate and cultivate. Shinsong looked at Night Sorrow's figure. Inshi was very angry because Night Sorrow's words implied that his fiancée needed pity, but she did not. Sighing, Inshi went to meditate and cultivate. She understood that she was just a subdued servant, a servant girl. Night Sorrow treated her like this was already very good. After resting for 2 days, Night Sorrow and she continued to move forward. Night Sorrow and she were shocked by the situation near the entrance of the Netherworld. There were Netherworld beasts everywhere, and there were 2 saints among them. In such a situation, the 2 could not get close. After moving some distance, Night Sorrow and she entered the time-space treasure pagoda. Night Sorrow looked at she and said, they want to take over the supreme river space. Should I not keep a secret and bring all the saints of the 9 domains here to fight and kill them? No. This space has the Netherworld attribute. The Netherworld beasts are compatible with the attribute here, and their combat power is increased. The people of the 9 domains world are suppressed. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight here. F*CK. In ancient times, The supreme river space did not exist. Our ancestors would not be at a disadvantage if they fought here. But now it's different. Night Sorrow lamented. Night Sorrow, I feel that this ancient supreme river battlefield might be related to Clear Sky City. Could it be that the supreme river battlefield is below Clear Sky City? She suggested a bold idea. After hearing Shi's words, Night Sorrow stood up and paced back and forth, thinking. He felt that Shi's idea was very possible. The supreme river battlefield of the ancient investiture of the gods was an ancient battlefield. Two royal cities disappeared at the same time. Clear Sky City also appeared in the Qingtian domain, and Haohai City was not far from Dongsheng City. Seeing Yishang frowning and thinking, Shi said, I'm just saying it casually. Don't listen. She didn't want Yishang to be troubled. You make a lot of sense. Night Sorrow took out the map that Wu Lingfei had given him, and then took out the map of the Nine Domains world. He marked the location of the Eastern Xian Domain's Medicine Valley's Passage and Dongxiang City's Passage. After comparing them, he made a mark on the map that Wu Lingfei had taken out. He knew 2 points and wanted to verify the third. This was not difficult for Night Sorrow. Seeing the location that he had verified, Night Sorrow sighed. Shi poured Night Sorrow a glass of water and asked Night Sorrow what he was doing. After drinking the water and glancing at Shi, Night Sorrow pointed at the map and said, Your speculation is correct. Clear Sky City and the Supreme River Space are connected. The corresponding point should be here. Even if there is a deviation, it should be in this area. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Shi was surprised. Is that so? Indeed. I originally planned to go back after investigating a bit more, but with this discovery, I have to go and take a look, Night Sorrow said after looking at the map again. Then let's go and take a look. Fortunately, my soul power is still at its peak. If we investigate carefully, there won't be any great danger, Shi said. Just be careful. Maybe we can find something, Night Sorrow said. If we find something, maybe we really have a chance to enter Clear Sky City in advance. Shi was a little excited because that was the real big opportunity. Opportunities are fought for by individuals, but the crisis of the Nine Domains is for everyone. I still want to know the secret of the investiture of the gods. Will it threaten the current Nine Domains world? Night Sorrow said. Chapter 766. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You don't have anyone you care about, so some of your thoughts are different from mine. This is nothing. I care about too many people, so my pursuit is different. Seeing that she was a little embarrassed, Night Sorrow said with a smile, You don't have to cover up for me. I am indeed inferior. She looked at Night Sorrow and said. Then, the two of them advanced toward the area that Night Sorrow had marked out. However, it would take some time. Along the way, they killed and investigated. With the formation of the desolate, immortal body, Night Sorrow's combat power skyrocketed. He could even kill a mid-level honorable nether beast. Even a high-level honorable nether beast could not do anything to him. Shi was shocked because Night Sorrow had the potential to become an invincible honorable. Moreover, he was the king of invincible honorables. Without any high-level saint-level nether beasts blocking their way, Night Sorrow and she were able to move forward without any difficulty. However, as they got closer to the predetermined area, Night Sorrow also found a problem. A spatial storm appeared out of nowhere, and there were cracks in the sky. There really is a problem. This spatial storm is the same as the one outside Haotian City. Shi said, No, according to my estimation, there's still 200 miles to the corresponding location of Haotian City. Even if we can move forward now, we can't go that far. In the end, all our efforts will be in vain. Night Sorrow said, Then what should we do? The power of the spatial turbulence is too strong. Shi observed and said, This is a big formation set up by someone. However, the foundation of the formation is very deep. It is difficult to figure out and break. It can be said that it is beyond the scope of my understanding. Night Sorrow said, You can tell. Shi looked at Night Sorrow and asked, The spatial turbulence, and spatial storms, natural rotation, and trajectory are not like this. I can tell from this point. However, the person who set up the formation borrowed the power of heaven and earth. Therefore, the power of the formation is what we see. Night Sorrow said. She nodded. Although she wanted to investigate, it was impossible for her to do so at the moment. The spatial turbulence was extremely violent, and it was not something that could be resisted by human strength. Night Sorrow planned to look around the spatial turbulence, but he was disappointed. This was because the area sealed by the spatial turbulence was like the canyon. It was completely sealed, and there was no edge to explore. This formation is beginning to lose its balance because of the increase in the crack in the sky. However, it will take time for the formation to be destroyed. Let's go. In the future, we'll just visit when we're free. Love, go little, say, Kunite Sorrow found a secluded place and set up an illusion array, a killing array, and a teleportation array. She didn't understand. She didn't know what Night Sorrow was doing. Looking at She's hesitant expression, Night Sorrow said, "It's millions of miles from the spatial passage in the Medicine Valley to here. It's a waste of time to fly back and forth. I have a small teleportation crystal here. It's not a waste to use it here." After everything was done, Night Sorrow and she entered the space-time pagoda to rest. Night Sorrow planned to rest for a while before leaving. This was how it was, and there was no point in continuing. It was better to look elsewhere. Just as Night Sorrow entered the space-time pagoda, a violent fluctuation came from the Night Moon Sea. Then, a middle-aged man wearing the Night Moon King battlesuit and a purple gold crown walked out. The middle-aged man was well-built, and his eyes were bright and full of spirit. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flash of light. He stood there with the air of a king. As the middle-aged man appeared, 5 or 6 people came out one after another behind him. Baidu search, AI go, female sign Xiao, say www.ai2xs. So not long after they stood still, someone came. It was Yi Linglan. He had come to the Night Moon Sea to deal with some matters and had sensed the energy fluctuation here. Yi Linglan greets brother Invincible King, royal uncles, Prince Wuyo, and young concubine Wuyo. Yi Linglan bowed to them. "Where's King Ling Xie?" The person in front asked. He was the current ruler of the Night Moon Kingdom, Invincible King Yi Linglan. Therefore, even if the emperor came out, he would still stand behind him. Then, Yi Linglan explained the current situation of the Night Moon Sea and Yi Lingxie's whereabouts. "Elder Linglan, where's Xiao now?" A slender woman with shoulder-length black hair and a face full of grace and elegance asked. "Young concubine, young master left the Night Moon Kingdom 2 months ago. I don't know where he is now, but he left me a message crystal and said that I can crush it if there's an emergency. Should I crush it now?" Yi Linglan took out the message crystal and was about to crush it. He was too excited that the Yi clan had finally returned. "No need. Send someone to inform King Ling Xie to come back. We'll talk about Xiao later," Yi Linglan said. "Your Highness, young master thinks of himself as Night Sorrow and is unwilling to change his name," Yi Linglan said. At the same time, he explained why Night Sorrow was unwilling to change his name. "Then don't change it. A man of Night Moon must be responsible. Those 2 guards are worth remembering," Yi Linglan said after hearing Yi Linglan's words. Yi Linglan brought a group of people to a mansion in the Night Moon Kingdom to rest. He couldn't let others know that the Yi clan had returned. Then, he went to inform Yi Lingxie. After sitting for a while, Yi Linglan stood up. "I think everyone wants to see the Night Moon now. Let's cover up and go take a look." Then, the group left the Night Moon Kingdom and walked towards the Night Moon City. Night Moon City had recovered very well and was very prosperous. Yi Linglan and the others watched from inside the city after calling for a beast carriage. Unspecified currency, the only K, positive H, version, S1N or asterisk is a pirate plus T version, haha. Night Moon is doing well under the leadership of Night Sorrow. An old man with a golden crown said. He was the 3rd son of the Moon Emperor, Night Divine Thunder, and his title was Divine Thunder Emperor. At this moment, the beast carriage stopped, and the driver opened the door. Night Sorrow is our young master, not the brat you all are talking about. Get off. I don't want to do business with you. This scene stunned everyone in the carriage. I told you to get off? The driver said angrily. We just said something casually. Do you have to be like this? Night Divine Thunder said gloomily. Of course. No matter if it's the night moon now or the night moon in the future, no one can insult our young master. No one can. Get off. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Don't think that your cultivation is high. We night moon people are not afraid. The driver took out the sword at his waist. You're strong. Let's get off. Night Divine Thunder took a deep breath and said, I'm not strong, but our night moon has a strong young master. Young master said that on the night moon, the sky belongs to us night moon people. The driver drove the beast carriage away. Eighth uncle, how do you feel? Yiling Huan looked at Night Divine Thunder and asked, He's very popular. When will I meet this domineering brat? Night Divine Thunder had mixed feelings. Chapter 767. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go Divided by Shao. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Then, the few of them casually looked around the streets of Night Moon. Baidu search, AI go female sign, Shao, say www.aichuxs. So then, the few of them entered a tea house. There were whispers in the tea house. They were all talking about Night Sorrow, but no one mentioned the name Night Sorrow. They all called him Young Master Shang. Hearing everyone talking about how Night Sorrow had single-handedly annihilated the cities of the various dynasties. He had killed so many of them that they had to compromise in the end. Princess Consort Wu Yu's eyes turned red, and tears started to fall from her eyes. Qing, everything is in the past. In the future, there will be father and the various emperors. There will be no need for the child to continue suffering. Yi Wuyo, who was wearing a silver crown and white robe, said softly. He had a straight nose and sword-like eyebrows that reached his temples. He went hunting in his teens to make a living. Who knows how much he has suffered? Yu Qing wiped her tears and said, Sharpness comes from sharpening. This is his destiny. However, the current situation is good. It is good for a descendant whose talent far surpasses ours to be sharpened like this. Another old man said. He was the 8th son of the Moon Emperor, Yi Shenquan. His title was God Crazy Emperor. The few of them quietly listened to the discussions. Finally, Yi Shenlei muttered, Why do I feel like there is nothing that kid doesn't dare to do? Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation because there were people talking about how Night Sorrow was not afraid of Chen Yuan. A martial artist must have a fearless heart. He has not been nurtured by his family. To reach this step today, his state of mind and temperament should have been tempered greatly. Yiling Huan said, as he took a sip of tea, Wu Yu, I want to see our future daughters-in-law. Yu Qing looked at Yi Wuyo and asked, Yu Qing, wait for a moment. Let's wait for your uncle Ling Xie and Wang to come back. We'll take a look together. Yiling Huan nodded at Yu Qing. Afterward, the few of them sat on the teleportation circle and looked at the other cities. Night Moon's recovery made them very happy. Baidu search, AI go, female sign Shao, say www.aichuxs. So and when they returned to the Night Moon, Yi Lingxie and Yi Linglan had returned. Yi Lingxie was very excited. He hugged Yi Linghuan and then greeted the others. After sitting down, Yi Linghuan explained the current situation. Yi Linghuan and the others already knew a little about the current situation. Now they just needed to know the details. Does Night Sorrow mean that he will find a way to deal with the saint from the 7-star dynasty? Yi Linghuan asked in surprise. Yes. He said that we don't need to beg for help. He has a strong personality and can't stand to see people beg for help. That's why he doesn't want us Night Moon people to beg for help, Yi Lingxie said. This king wants to fight the 7-star dynasty. It seems that he doesn't need to. Let's wait for him to come back. Yi Linghuan said after thinking for a while. He knew that Night Sorrow wouldn't do anything he wasn't sure about. I don't know where that kid ran off to. The young master of night Moon actually disappeared. This is the first time in the history of Night Moon, Night God Thunder said. Third uncle, which of the things that Yishang has done is not unique in Yiyu's history? Yi Ling Xie asked. Your cultivation is not bad. Invincible Saint Realm? Night God Thunder looked at Yi Ling Xie and asked. I have a good grandnephew who gave me space crystals. That's why I strengthened my bloodline talent to the limit, Yi Ling Xie said. He gave all his resources to his family. In the future, he can only go to his family to strengthen his bloodline talent. Night God Kuang said with a sigh. Night Sorrow has the Qingtian region's time and space pagoda. His bloodline talent can be continuously strengthened. That's not a problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken up his cultivation resources, Yi Ling Xie said. Then Yi Ling Xie asked about the situation of the other people in Night Moon, including his father and the previous ruler of Night Moon, Emperor Shen Xian. Yi Ling Huan told him that some people were still cultivating. After he came out of seclusion, he took a few people to be the vanguard. When the battle started, Night Moon's powerful people would appear. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go to the city in the sky and see this king's 3 granddaughters-in-law, Yi Ling Huan said. Then the group followed Yi Ling Xie to Night Moon City. It was still evening, and the members of the god-slaying team were still cultivating. Yi Ling Xie led the group directly to Night Sorrow's residence. Yi Ling Lan introduced Papa Gu, who was cultivating in the courtyard, to Yi Ling Huan and the others. Knowing that Papa Gu was the benefactor who had raised Night Sorrow, Night Moon's people all cupped their hands in greeting. Then Yi Ling Lan introduced Yi Ling Huan and the others to Papa Gu. I'm sorry, my abilities are limited. I didn't take good care of Night Sorrow, Papa Gu said apologetically. Please don't say that. Night Sorrow's achievements today are closely related to your education. You are our benefactor. Yi Weio pulled his wife and bowed to Papa Gu again. Not only are you and your wife's benefactor, but you are also our dynasty's benefactor, Yi Ling Huan said. At this time, Wu Lingfei appeared and stood in front of the residence's door. Golden Phoenix. Yi Ling Huan cupped his hands in greeting. You're back. It's good that you're back, Wu Lingfei said. Then everyone sat down and chatted casually. Wu Lingfei knew these people from Night Moon's dynasty, so their conversation was more casual. While they were chatting, Sikong Chiyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei returned from outside. The moment they entered the residence, they were stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Haha. Back then, this king represented Night Sorrow's parents at your engagement ceremony. Now that his parents are here, even an ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. Besides, you are all outstanding. Yi Ling smiled wickedly and introduced them to everyone. Our son has good taste. Yu Qing looked at Sikong Chiyu and the other two with a smile in her eyes. She was very satisfied. Our Night Moon's men all have one wife. He's good 3 at once. Yi Weio muttered. This was indeed the Night Moon's dynasty's tradition. All the emperors and princes had one wife. What's wrong? If you have the ability, go find one too. Are you not satisfied with your son's ability? Come, sit with mother. Yu Qing looked at Yi Weio with dissatisfaction. Then she waved at Sikong Chiyu and the other two. Sikong Chiyu and the other two shyly called her mother. After the engagement ceremony, they couldn't call her Annie anymore. You're back. Do you have any plans? At this time, Wu Lingfei spoke about serious matters. I'm not afraid of you laughing at this. We still want to see what Night Sorrow has to say. Yi Ling Huan thought for a moment and said his opinion. That's for the best. Actually, in terms of connections, Night Sorrow's connections are broader than yours. If he wants to fight, there are many people who are willing to help him, Wu Lingfei said with a smile. At this time, Yu Qing pulled Sikong Chiyu and the other two to the side and asked about Night Sorrow. Since Night Sorrow's 1-month birthday, she hadn't seen Night Sorrow. She missed him so much that she wanted to know more from Sikong Chiyu and the others. Chapter 768. Geniuses Remember Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After listening to Wu Lingfei's explanation, Yi Ling Huan and the others understood that the 9 zones were in chaos. Some saints had already appeared. If the Night Moon Dynasty wanted to take revenge, the most direct obstacle was the 7-star saint of the 7-star dynasty. Also, if the Night Moon Dynasty doesn't start a war, they won't dare to attack the Night Moon Dynasty, said Wu Lingfei. Yi Linghuan nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow had traded his life for some time to rest. Lord Golden Phoenix, Night Moon can't tolerate their sneak attack. We must fight, said Night God Thunder. I'm not trying to persuade you to stop. Night Sorrow won't stop either. The main thing is that we need a thorough plan. We need to know the recent movements of the 7-star dynasty, the Green Abyss dynasty, the Red Leaf dynasty, and the Golden Dragon King dynasty. We need to know if there are any hidden saints, said Wu Lingfei. Yi Linghuan nodded. Night Moon wanted to take revenge and rise. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Since they were going to attack, they had to make sure nothing went wrong. All right, I'll be in seclusion in the pavilion in the back. If there's anything, let me know. Wu Lingfei stood up and nodded to the people of the Night Moon Dynasty. Then she left Night Sorrow's residence. Our Night Sorrow can't grow without Lord Golden Phoenix's help. We need to remember this, said Night God Kwang. The others nodded. The Night Moon people were vengeful, but they also wouldn't forget kindness. I wonder when that Night Sorrow kid will come back, muttered Night God Thunder. He was the most short-tempered of the emperors of the Night Moon Dynasty. Third brother, your temper is getting worse, said Night God Kwang as he glanced at Night God Thunder. Your Highness and the emperors will stay in the city in the sky. There's a newly built pavilion there. Yi Linghuan, who had been standing to the side, said. Yi Linghuan nodded. Then make the arrangements. As for the other 2 imperial uncles, I intend to expel Yuexiang City from the Night Moon Dynasty and erase them from the Yi clan's records. Their existence is the shame of the Night Moon Dynasty. Night God Thunder and Night God Kwang nodded. Currently, Yi Linghuan was in charge of Night Moon. He asked this to give face to his elders, because these people were the descendants of the Moon Emperor's 5th son. They were related to Night God Thunder and Night God Kwang. Having made his decision, Yi Linghuan immediately arranged for Yi Lingxie to handle this matter. Afterwards, he and Yi Linghuan went to their new residence. AI Chu Chu Shua 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 W. AI Chu X. However, Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing didn't leave. Yi Wuyo drank tea with Old Gu. Yu Qing chatted with Sikong Chiyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi. Hearing that Night Sorrow had been ambushed and injured by a high-level venerable, Yi Wuyo's hand trembled. They really bullied our Night Moon. It's fine. Night Sorrow's injuries weren't serious. Later, the Tianfeng dynasty was annihilated, the Silver Devil clan was destroyed, and the Western Azure sect suffered a heavy blow. However, I heard from Annie Fei that the Western Nether region has a very powerful saint. Only Lord Long Xiansheng can restrain them, said Aoi. My son should have been the high and mighty young master of Night Moon. Now, he dares to bite any cat or dog. It's my incompetence as a father. Yi Wuyo stood up, the veins on his clenched fists throbbing. It was clear that he was very angry. Father, Night Sorrow has never relied on his status to do anything. He is the Deputy Valley Master of the Medicine Valley. But no matter how difficult it was for him, he never asked the Medicine Valley to do anything. After becoming the young master of the Qinji Tower, he also never relied on the prestige of the Tianjin Tower, said Yang Lei. He has a backbone, but this made him suffer a lot. Yu Qing's voice was a little choked up. I think he will be back soon. In the past, he never went out for such a long time, said Aoi after thinking for a while. Then, Yi Linghuan came to call Yi Wuyo and arrange their accommodation. However, Yu Qing didn't want to go. She wanted to chat with Sikong Chiyu and the others. Elder Linghuan, we will have dinner with my parents today. Later, my parents will rest here. We will go to their accommodation tomorrow, said Aoi to Yi Linghuan. Yi Linghuan nodded and left. He knew that Aoi and the others would make the arrangements. Night Sorrow and Inshi fought during the day and rested at night to cultivate. Although they didn't gain much, they still had a lot of materials for refining pills and weapons. This time it's not bad. We got 2 sacred grade weapons and a lot of spirit stones. However, for you, "We don't have any suitable weapons or protective treasures," said Shi. "I don't need them." Night Sorrow waved the spear in his hand and moved the space-time pagoda in his sleeve. As for weapons and protective treasures, Night Sorrow didn't need them. Looking at Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear and space-time pagoda, Shi nodded. Perhaps Night Sorrow was the only one in the Nine Regions world who dared to say that he didn't need sacred-grade weapons and protective treasures. Looking at Shi's envious eyes, Night Sorrow shook his head. He still had a mid-level sacred treasure that he hadn't used in the Medicine Valley. As they moved forward, the two of them got closer to the space passage in the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow's cultivation of the Myriad Tau Tome had also improved a lot. Night Sorrow planned to stabilize his vital energy cultivation. He didn't even plan to use the Dragon Spirit Pill while he was a level 4 supremacy. The main reason was that his cultivation had improved too quickly. He had to stabilize it properly. Night Sorrow didn't rush Shi. Instead, he hoped that Shi would be more stable. Shi had already recovered to a 3-star saint for a while. As long as she became a 4-star saint, she wouldn't have to worry about the scourge of a 7-star saint. Shi was very happy that Night Sorrow didn't rush her. This was also a sign that Night Sorrow cared about her. A month later, Night Sorrow and she returned to the entrance of the Medicine Valley region. The two of them once again started killing the nether beasts that had gathered. Without sacred-grade nether beasts, Night Sorrow and she didn't feel any pressure at all. It wasn't even a challenge. After killing the nether beasts, Night Sorrow found a secret place to set up a teleportation array. It was a teleportation array that corresponded to the teleportation array in the space storm. This way, they could teleport between the two places and save a lot of time. They didn't need to fly. After setting up the teleportation array, Night Sorrow set up an illusion array and a killing array outside. This was to prevent the teleportation array from being destroyed by the nether beasts. After hiding the teleportation array, Night Sorrow set up a sealing array outside the space tunnel. Then, he added an illusion array outside the sealing array. With both sides having sealing arrays, and with the concealment of the illusion array, it would be extremely difficult for the nether beasts to enter the Nine Zones world. With a protective shield around Shi, Night Sorrow passed through the space tunnel. Without breaking the seal, they returned to the Nine Zones world. The aura of the Nine Zones world is so comfortable. "It's our origin," Shi said. Free fee for reading novels unspecified currency 1. Yes, the Nine Zones world is our origin. It's our home. If we go to other spaces, we'll be outsiders. We won't have a sense of belonging. Night Sorrow felt the same way. Then, Shi asked Night Sorrow about his future plans. Chapter 769. Genius 1, second remember love, go/little? I will provide you with interesting novels to read. When he reached the place where he entered the void space, Night Sorrow realized that the environment had changed. The original space tunnel had become a deep mountain wall. Night Sorrow used the space rend. After tearing the space apart, he searched for the void space in the space turbulence, but he could not find it. This made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. If he did not refine the Void Fate Pearl, it would be very difficult to find the void space that was completely sealed, let alone control it. Refining the Void Fate Pearl was the key to solving this problem. After leaving the space turbulence, Night Sorrow put Shi into the Time Pagoda and flew back to Danding City. After being away for more than 3 months, Night Sorrow was in a hurry to go back. Otherwise, Sikong Chiyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei would be worried. When he reached the teleportation circle of Danding City, Night Sorrow stood in front of the Golden Fire Palace for a while. He knew that if Yang Yu was inside, he would come out. If not, he was not there. After waiting for a while and seeing that there was no movement, Night Sorrow got on the teleportation circle and started to teleport. After a few times, Night Sorrow returned to the city in the sky. He walked out of the teleportation circle and walked towards the arena. When he arrived at the arena, Night Sorrow was stunned. He saw a woman he did not know, but he felt very close to her. January 1st. Original FW, it plus his $R, both FW pirated versions. Yu Qing, who was sitting at the edge of the arena and watching the members of the god-slaying team cultivate, stood up. She looked at Knight Sorrow, who was wearing a white battle robe. His face was very similar to Yi Wuyo's face. She knew who he was. Are you Shower? Yu Qing's voice was trembling. I am Knight Sorrow. May I ask who you are? Knight Sorrow looked at Yu Qing and asked. Knight Sorrow, she's your mother. Sikong Chuyu and Yang Lei came over and said, Mother. Knight Sorrow looked at Yu Qing, his eyes filled with joy and shock. He didn't know what to say. Mother knows your name is Knight Sorrow, but your nickname is Shao. Yu Qing's eyes were filled with tears. Knight Sorrow greets Mother. Knight Sorrow pulled his robe and knelt down. With a wave of her sleeve, Yu Qing blocked Knight Sorrow's bent body. How could she let Knight Sorrow kneel? She knew that Knight Sorrow had to kneel on one knee to become a disciple. It's your mother's fault. I made you suffer all these years. Yu Qing stepped forward and hugged Knight Sorrow. Mother, I've been fine all these years. I'm really happy to know that you and Father are doing well. I'm really afraid that I'm an orphan. Love, go little say, Chu Knight Sorrow's nose was a little sour. No, your father, and I didn't want to abandon you. We had no choice. That was the only way to protect you. Later on, we asked Uncle Wang Xie to search for you in the vicinity of Bayou City, but there was no news. Yu Qing's face was full of apology. She felt very sorry for Knight Sorrow. Father Gu said that when he found me, there were guards who died in battle by my side. I didn't feel inferior because I knew that I wasn't abandoned. It was just that my parents couldn't find me, so I had to work hard to find my way home. Knight Sorrow said. His hand, which was being held by Yu Qing, was trembling. He had been determined to find his family for many years. He had always been very strong. Now that strength was being torn apart by his family. In the future, we'll be together as a family. We'll fight side by side. Yi Wuyo came. Beside him were Yi Linghuan and Night Moon's emperors. Originally, they were arranging the battle plans. Then, they found out about the situation here. Shao, this is your father and grandfather. The other two are the Divine Thunder Emperor and the Divine Madness Emperor. Love go little say, Chu Yu Qing introduced them. Knight Sorrow wanted to pay his respects, but Yi Wuyo stopped him. He was now filled with guilt. How could he refuse Knight Sorrow's greeting? Then, the group went to Knight Sorrow's residence. Yu Qing pulled Knight Sorrow to sit beside her. She kept asking about Knight Sorrow's life. Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Atoy personally cooked and prepared the dishes. Then, they all ate dinner together. Knight Sorrow, in terms of seniority, I'm your great uncle. But in Night Moon City, because I called you a brat, I was yelled at. Night God Thunder said gloomily. Great uncle, in Night Moon City, who dared to yell at you? Knight Sorrow stood up and poured wine for everyone. Your great uncle talked about Night Sorrow in Night Moon City, but there were people from Night Moon who didn't want to listen. In the end, we were all kicked off the beast carriage. This shows that you did well. It shows that the people of Night Moon acknowledge you. We are all happy, Night God said with a wild laugh. It's my fault. I made great uncle uncomfortable. I'll drink as an apology. Knight Sorrow took the bowl and drank it in one gulp. Shao slow down, Yu Qing said when she saw Knight Sorrow drink a bowl. Don't worry about that. Knight Sorrow has been drinking wine like water since he was young. Papa Gu smiled and nodded at Yu Qing. They didn't drink much during dinner. Then, Yi Linghuan asked Knight Sorrow what he thought of the big picture. Yishang's intention was to stabilize the situation first, and then deal with his enemies one by one. Okay, then we'll do as you say. Originally, we wanted to deal with the Tianfeng dynasty first. Now that the Tianfeng dynasty no longer exists, it doesn't matter which one we deal with first, Yi Linghuan said. After drinking, Yi Linghuan and the two emperors left. Because today was Knight Sorrow's day to meet his parents, they had a lot to talk about. Under Yang Lei's suggestion, they went to the edge of the lake. Papa Gu couldn't fly, so it was Knight Sorrow who brought Papa Gu down. When they reached the lake, Aoi began to make tea, and everyone chatted casually. Mother, why didn't you bring little sister out? Night Sorrow asked Yuqing. You might not know, but this time, we came out to prepare for the battle. So your sister is cultivating with the Shunyue Emperor, who is recuperating, and we didn't let her follow. Yuqing said with a smile. Qing, let's call the child by his name in the future. His name is in the past. Now, our child who survived and was reborn is called Night Sorrow. Yiweo looked at his wife and said, Then we'll do as you say. Yuqing nodded. Night Sorrow, in the future, if there's anything, tell father. Don't take it all on yourself. Let's not talk about father's strength, but our Night Moon people dare to fight against the world. Yiweo patted Night Sorrow's shoulder and said, After not taking care of his son for 20 years, Yiweo didn't want his son to be under any pressure. Father, mother, I've grown up. You don't have to worry too much. Night Sorrow enjoyed this kind of warmth. After chatting for a long time, the group went back to rest. Night Sorrow sent Papa Goo to the door of the pavilion. Father, it's been hard on you all these years. Although I found my parents, you'll always be my father. Father understands. In the future, I will cultivate when I'm free. When I'm free, I will go to the lake to fish. When you have a child, I will help you take care of the child. Father's shoulders can still carry a child. Papa Goose said with a smile. Chapter 770. Genius remembers love in 1 second / small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You reap what you sow. Who can you blame? It's good enough that we didn't kill him. Mr. Goose said angrily. He was angry at Chun Chin's ingratitude, and that Chun Chun had tricked him in Night Sorrow. We didn't kill him because he's also a pitiful person. If we cripple his cultivation, he won't be able to cause any more trouble. We'll let him live an ordinary life. From now on, we'll be passers-by and have nothing to do with him, Night Sorrow said to Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu nodded. He understood that this was the end of Chun Chen's matter. His path and fate had been set. There was no possibility of him causing any more trouble. Seeing that Mr. Gu went to rest, Night Sorrow returned to the main building. There were only servants in the main building. Sikong Chiyu and the other two had returned to their attic to cultivate. Now the mansion had been expanded and an attic had been added. There were also more servants. The two maids who ran out with Mr. Gu also came here. The main reason was that they didn't have a good place to go. After letting the servants rest, Night Sorrow entered the secret cultivation room. After entering the secret cultivation room, Night Sorrow flashed into the space-time pagoda. Look at the main page. Chapter section Upper X. Seeing Night Sorrow enter, Inshi stopped cultivating. She stood up and tidied her skirt. Not bad. Congratulations on meeting your parents. Baidu search love go xiao shua www.aichux. Come, I'm happy today. Do you want a drink? Night Sorrow sat at the table and asked. Inshi nodded and sat opposite Night Sorrow. I've always thought that white hair is ugly, but it's not bad on you. It looks different and has a different charm, Night Sorrow said as he poured the wine. If it were someone else, I'd really want to say that I'm really blind. My silver hair is produced by my bloodline. I was born with silver hair. Inshi glanced at Night Sorrow. In fact, the word really blind was meant for Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow didn't care. As long as Inshi didn't talk nonsense on serious matters, he wouldn't care about these small matters. After drinking a jug of wine, Yishang went to meditate and cultivate. Right now, he was consolidating his true qi cultivation and working hard to raise the cultivation of the Myriad Daosh treasure tome. This was because the next level of the Myriad Daosh treasure tome would be the 4th level of the spirit refinement realm. It was the middle stage of the spirit refinement realm. Seeing that Yishang was cultivating diligently, Inshi also began to meditate. She also wanted to improve her cultivation and restore to the realm of 4-star saint as soon as possible. After cultivating the basics for an entire night, Night Sorrow left the space-time pagoda. After leaving the secret cultivation room, he went to the courtyard to cultivate his spear arts. Night Sorrow's spear cultivation was to find the feeling and cultivate the compatibility of the space splitter spear. Aboy then fetched water for Night Sorrow to wash his face. When Night Sorrow was washing up, Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing came over. Father, mother. Yi Shang wiped his face and greeted the two of them. You're cultivating your spear so early? Yu Qing asked when she saw Night Sorrow's space splitter spear beside him. I'm just stretching my body and cultivating the compatibility of my spear. Night Sorrow put the space splitter spear back into the holster on his back. Night Sorrow, the two spears on your back are high-grade spirit weapons. Can you use them? Yi Wuyo asked Night Sorrow. One is a black iron spear that I've been using since I started hunting. It later became a high-grade spirit weapon, so it's still compatible. The other one I prepared for my soul doppelganger. I usually use it to cultivate the compatibility. Night Sorrow said to Yi Wuyo. He didn't need to hide anything from his parents. All right, mother, I have a face-preserving pill here. Take it. Yang Lei took out the face-preserving pill that Night Sorrow gave her. It was the last one. Mother doesn't need it. Take it. Yu Qing said with a smile. After a few days of interaction, she liked her 3 daughters-in-law very much. Ninth senior sister, mother is a 7th level venerable. Why would I need a face-preserving pill? Night Sorrow said with a smile. Mother's cultivation is so high. Sikong Chuyu and the other two were shocked when they heard Night Sorrow say Yu Qing's cultivation. Your mother is the eldest daughter of Beiyu City. She was famous back then. Yi Wuyo said with a smile. Mother, you are of the earth attribute. What weapon do you use? Night Sorrow asked Yu Qing. Other women usually use long swords. However, Beiyu City's inheritance is saber techniques. It's a war saber. Yu Qing said with a smile. It was very rare for women to practice saber techniques. Then I have a gift for Mother. Night Sorrow said, and took out what he had obtained from the small space in Taichuan. This aura, it's a sacred weapon. That crystal is an origin stone? Yi Wuyo said in surprise when he saw Night Sorrow take out the 5-foot war saber and the yellow crystal. Father's right. I obtained it by chance. It suits Mother. Night Sorrow was very happy. To him, it was a treasure of little value. Now it was very suitable for his mother. Yu Qing looked at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, these are all treasures. You can use them to exchange for what you need. Night Sorrow shook his head. I have everything I need. You can take it. There are also 3 dragon spirit pills. You can use them to cultivate. Night Sorrow had been providing resources to many people. How could he be short of his parents? Night Sorrow gave Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing a bottle of life essence liquid and origin essence liquid. He also gave them some top-grade crystals. Yi Wuyo sighed. He was happy, but at the same time, he felt guilty. Night Sorrow had taken out a lot. To Night Sorrow, being able to help his parents was the happiest thing. Then, Night Sorrow took his parents and Sikong Chuyu to the training ground. Now, Sikong Chuyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei did not have to worry about increasing their cultivation. They just needed to work hard to stabilize their cultivation. After watching the members of the God-slaying team cultivate for a while, Night Sorrow took his parents for a walk around the city in the sky. He also went to the residence that Yi Linglan had arranged for Yi Wuyo and his wife. Then, he went to the lake to cultivate. Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing, who did not follow Night Sorrow to the lake, sat on wooden chairs in the courtyard of their residence and talked. Qing, our son is a person with great luck. Those who are related to him will receive some luck. When I was seriously injured back then, I thought that I would be like this for the rest of my life. With the help of our son's life essence liquid, not only did I solve the problem of my old injuries and life essence, but my cultivation also improved. You have the origin stone, so you will have a chance to enter the saint realm in the future, Yi Wuyo said. But this is equivalent to using his opportunity. What will happen to him in the future? Yu Qing was still worried about Night Sorrow. You have not reached the peak of the venerable realm and have not touched the domain of the power of rules, so you can't feel it. Our son has the power of rules. I didn't ask what the situation is, but it is definitely a good thing. Yi Wuyo nodded to Yu Qing. All these years, without the help of the family, It must have been very, very difficult for him to make a name for himself. He fought step by step to get to where he is now. Yue will be fighting next, but he still can't stop. I don't know what father plans to do next. Yu Qing lowered her head and thought. Chapter 771. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. X forever. Asterisk for a long time you fee to look at Z small, say, after Night Sorrow communicated with Tianyu for a while, he started to cultivate the spatial crack. He used the pressure of the spatial turbulence storm to stabilize his cultivation. Then, he sped up his cultivation of the Myriad Tao Tome. At noon, when Night Sorrow finished recovering and was about to use spatial rend again, Yiling Huan came. Yiling Huan came alone. What are you practicing? Yiling Huan asked Night Sorrow. Spatial fissure. Then use the pressure in the turbulent flow of space to stabilize your cultivation, Night Sorrow said. Then continue to cultivate. Yiling Huan nodded. He also wanted to see to what extent his only grandson, Night Moon's only young master, had cultivated the Night Moon dynasty's innate skill. Nodding at Yiling Huan, Night Sorrow executed the spatial rend and entered the spatial turbulence with the reincarnation spear. Yiling Huan also entered the spatial turbulence and followed behind Night Sorrow. He wanted to get a closer look at Night Sorrow's situation. Following behind Night Sorrow, Yiling Huan was shocked. This was because Night Sorrow was moving very quickly through the spatial turbulence. He had to increase his speed to keep up. Night Sorrow's mutated protective shield directly cut forward. When they encountered a more violent spatial turbulence, Night Sorrow would shoot out with a spear, almost not slowing down their advance. After traveling 25 kilometers, Night Sorrow felt that he had expended a lot of energy. So, he used spatial crack to cut open space and return to the 9 domains world. Yiling Huan also came out of the spatial turbulence. There's no problem with your cultivation of spatial crack. When Grandpa was at your cultivation level, he couldn't do it all. There's still a huge gap. With the innate skill, spatial crack, even if you can't win against others, it won't be a problem for you to retreat. Grandpa can rest assured, Yiling Huan said. I also recently found the feeling. Grandpa, do you want a drink? Night Sorrow asked after returning to the wooden boat. Yiling Huan smiled and nodded. He was very satisfied and appreciative of his grandson, Night Sorrow. While drinking, Yiling Huan asked Night Sorrow about his future plans and his thoughts on Night Moon's revenge. Night Sorrow didn't say anything about Yin Shi. He only said that he hoped to buy some time so that he could deal with the 7-star saint. Yiling Huan nodded. Night Moon also needed time. There were still some people in the family who were either recovering or cultivating. The more time passed, the more experts there would be in Night Moon. Love go go shao shua 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 w. AI Chuex. Calm currently. Night Moon's strength could defeat any dynasty. But in fact, as long as Night Moon returned and fought with any dynasty, the other dynasties would fight together. They wouldn't watch Night Moon's dynasty be defeated one by one. After drinking a jar of wine with Night Sorrow, Yiling Huan left. Night Sorrow also returned to the space-time treasure pagoda. He planned to recover and continue cultivating. Your grandfather is very strong. Although he's only a 1-star saint, his aura is very sharp. Ordinary saints can't be compared to high-level saints. I reckon that ordinary 3-star saints aren't his match. Inshi said. Through Night Sorrow's soul power, she could clearly sense the situation outside. The problem of the 7-star saint still requires you to resolve it. Your side has a greater chance of success than my grandfather's side, said Yishan. Don't worry. Give me some time. I'll cultivate to 4-star saint. Then, dealing with a 5-star saint won't be a problem. I'm confident. Inshi said. She wasn't far from 4-star saint. The more time she had, the more her cultivation would recover. That's good. Call me if you need resources. We don't lack resources, Night Sorrow said as he clenched his fist. Inshi blushed because she was embarrassed. She still wanted Night Sorrow's essence, and couldn't ask directly. Seeing you like this, I understand. All right, since we're by the lake, it'll be more convenient for me to take a bath. I won't be tricked by your fragrance. Night Sorrow was very careful now. He was worried that he would be smelled by Inshi's fragrance and be discovered by the Sikong Chiyu and the other two girls. While obtaining Night Sorrow's essence, Inshi would also help Night Sorrow nourish his body and the energy in his body. It was a win-win situation. After recovering, Night Sorrow entered the lake to take a bath. Then, he continued to cultivate the spatial crack. After cultivating until evening, Night Sorrow returned to the mansion. He had dinner with his parents and the three girls. Then, he returned to the secret cultivation room to continue cultivating. The Nine Regions world was currently peaceful. Many people didn't feel any sense of danger. However, Night Sorrow knew that the Nine Regions world was facing a huge storm. It was a very difficult storm. If they couldn't withstand it, then it would be the same as 10,000 years ago. It would be a disaster where all the experts would fall and the Nine Regions would be shattered. While Night Sorrow was cultivating, Inshi was also cultivating diligently. The following days were peaceful. After a month, Night Sorrow's Myriad Tao Tome cultivation returned to the peak of level 3 of the Spirit Refinement Realm. Night Sorrow's improvement was remarkable, but Inshi's improvement wasn't the same. She had successfully returned to being a 4-star saint. This situation made Inshi feel a little emotional. Only half a year had passed. After her cultivation was damaged, she didn't expect to recover so quickly. Although it would be more difficult to recover her cultivation in the following days because it required more energy, she was still very happy. For Inshi, it was true that she hadn't recovered her lost cultivation. However, her strength wasn't too far off. The most important point was that she had cultivated the body of wind origin. Her cultivation could be recovered with time. However, cultivating the body of wind origin was a great achievement. It wasn't something that could be accumulated with time and resources. After another cultivation session, Night Sorrow went to see Yiling Huan. He asked about the current situation in the Night Moon Dynasty. Because he could move now, Inshi could go and fight a 7-star saint. In Inshi's words, it was hard to say whether she could kill the 7-star saint, but she definitely wouldn't lose. Some time ago, Grandpa went back to the Night Moon Sea to check on the situation. The time to counterattack will be 2 months if it's fast, and half a year if it's slow, Yiling Huan said. Before you move, let me know in advance, Night Sorrow said. Yiling Huan was stunned for a moment before he nodded. He understood that Night Sorrow's side was already prepared. After that, Night Sorrow went to drink tea with his mother. His father, Yi Wuyo, stayed in the city in the sky for a few days before returning to the Night Moon Sea to comprehend the power of rules. This time, he came out because he missed his son. Now, Sikong Chiyu, Yang Lei, and Atoy were accompanying Yuqing every day. Yuqing could also guide them in their cultivation. A level 7 supremacy was an incredible expert. Yang Lei and Aoi didn't have any relatives. Therefore, they liked the feeling of having a mother. Mother, don't people say that the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is hard to get along with? I think you two are not much different from biological mother and daughter. Yishang looked at Yuqing and Sikong Chuyu, who were drinking tea, and said. Yang Lei looked at Night Sorrow and said, That's because mother is a kind mother. We are also very sensible. Yuqing looked at Night Sorrow and said, Night Sorrow, you have to take good care of Father Gu. It's not easy for him to raise you alone. Chapter 772. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go Divided by Xiao. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Where are you going? There are a lot of people watching you. Yuqing's eyes were filled with worry. Baidu search, AI, go female sign Xiao, say www.aichuxs. Com Yuqing had learned a lot during this period. She knew that Night Sorrow was an influential figure among the younger generation of the 9 domains and was being watched by many forces. She was afraid that some shameless people would try to assassinate Night Sorrow again. Mother, I'm going to take a look at the situation of the emergence of Haotian City. Besides, I've cultivated the spatial fissure. It won't be easy for anyone to assassinate me, Night Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that this was the nagging of a loving mother, but he liked the feeling. Mother, don't worry. When he was a chi refinement cultivator, he ran around everywhere and no one could do anything to him. Now that he's a mid-level venerable, he can fight above his level. There won't be a problem, Sikong Chiyu said with a smile. Night Sorrow bowed to Yu Qing and left Sky City. Night Sorrow hadn't been to the Realm Sea for a while. He wanted to take a closer look at the situation of Haotian City. If possible, he wanted to be the first to ascend Haotian City. Currently, only the Tianji Tower Alliance's side was outside Haotian City. However, there were still many venerable teams. The venerables of the Nine Domains world were all gathered near Haotian City, waiting for the emergence of Haotian City and waiting for opportunities. After arriving at the Qingtian Domain, Night Sorrow thought for a while and then went to the Celestial Peak Pavilion. Night Sorrow entered the Celestial Peak Pavilion wearing a mask. The Bronze Hall guards in the Celestial Peak Pavilion all bowed to greet him. When he arrived at the Underground Hall, Night Sorrow took off his mask. Q unspecified currency L, head J hair H. Subordinate Heavenly Star greets young master. The golden-masked Heavenly Star bowed to Night Sorrow. You're too polite. I plan to take a look at the Dark Tower. Night Sorrow nodded to Heavenly Star and stood on the teleportation array. Following which, Heavenly Star activated the teleportation array and sent Night Sorrow to the Tianji Tower's Dark Hall. Nodding to Gold Moon, who was guarding the teleportation array in the Dark Tower, Night Sorrow went directly to the Dark Tower. Guo Xiao and Hua Haining were meditating with their eyes closed. When they saw Night Sorrow, they opened their eyes and said, "It's rare for you to come here." Love Go Little Say, W. Chu. Yishan greeted Guo Xiao and Hua Haining with cupped hands. Wine. Then we'll talk. Guo Xiao tossed a futon to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow sat down, took out the wine, and gave Guo Xiao and Hua Haining a jar each. When they were drinking, Guo Xiao said that Chun Chen's affairs had been properly arranged. Apart from the disciples of the Medicine Valley, the branch of the Tianji Tower in Jiuan City had arranged a long-term task, which was to keep an eye on Chun Chen and kill him directly if he showed any signs of disobedience. As for Su Mu, he seemed to have disappeared at the moment, and there was no news about him. It's not easy to find him when he hides. He used to live with beasts and is nicknamed Beast Baby. By the way, what's Ji Yuhao's situation now? Night Sorrow asked about Ji Yuhao. Then Guo Xiao told Night Sorrow some news that surprised him. There was a small turmoil in the Ji family. After Ji Fenglan entered the Saint Realm, he had a conflict with Ji Haitian. After a fight, Ji Fenglan, who had mastered the rules of space, defeated Ji Haitian and took over the family again. He also made Ji Yuhao the young master of the Ji family. With the support and training of the family, Ji Yuhao had entered the 5th level of the Venerable Realm for some time. This guy's cultivation speed is very fast. Night Sorrow thought that his cultivation should not be far from Ji Yuhao's, but now there was still a big gap. Then Hua Haining explained to Night Sorrow that the Ji family was one of the oldest families in the Qingtian domain and had a very deep foundation. It was easy to train a venerable with resources. Night Sorrow thought for a while and figured it out. Ji Yuhao was a venerable with the time attribute, so the Ji family must have trained him with all their strength. As for resources, Night Sorrow thought that he had a lot of them. However, the Ji family had been passed down for countless generations. Each generation would accumulate some treasures, so the family was very rich. That guy is your potential opponent. Be careful. If you encounter him, kill him if you can. If you can't, run away, Hua Haining said. I know. Don't worry, Elder Hua, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Hua Haining and the others did not know that Night Sorrow had the supreme attribute. They only knew that Night Sorrow had the space attribute, and the space attribute was no match for the time attribute. In addition, Ji Yuhao's cultivation was higher than Night Sorrow's, so they were worried. After talking with Guo Xiao and Hua Haining for a while, Night Sorrow left Hinji Tower and rushed to Haohai City. Previously, Wu Lingfei left Sky City and went to the island in the Realm Sea mainly because the Night Clan people were in Sky City. Sky City was not a place where people could do whatever they wanted, so she was not worried about their safety. Before she left, Wu Lingfei mentioned to Night Sorrow that the profound jade energy she left in Night Sorrow's body would vibrate continuously in an emergency. She could feel it. Even if Night Sorrow was isolated by the energy, she could roughly sense his location. Last time, when Night Sorrow was captured by In Shi, she used energy to bind Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow did not take the initiative to vibrate the profound jade energy, so Wu Lingfei could not find a specific location. Night Sorrow was very relaxed now. Sneak attack? Come on. As long as it was not a high-level saint, no matter how many people came, they would all die. However, no one came looking for trouble. Night Sorrow safely arrived at Haohai City and then flew in the Realm Sea. Night Sorrow also released In Shi. You are so ruthless. You can actually ignore the Realm Sea's law attacks. I think all soul attacks should be ineffective against you, In Shi said with some emotion. You stand here and don't move. I will fly first and see how far we can sense each other. Yishang said to In Shi and then flew forward. He was looking for the perception distance. He wanted to know how far he could communicate with In Shi and how far he could still use his soul power. After flying for 120 miles, Yishang found that this was his limit. As long as he did not exceed this distance, he would be able to sense In Shi's soul fluctuations and thoughts. Yishang's thoughts could also be transmitted, but it would not work outside this range. Night Sorrow then told In Shi to follow. 120 miles. In other words, the limit of our soul connection and communication is 120 miles. In Shi said when they arrived beside Night Sorrow. It's like this. If you go beyond this range, I can sense your position, but I can't sense your soul fluctuations and can't communicate with you. So, you have to pay attention to this distance in the future, Night Sorrow said. You mean that if I go beyond this distance, you will detonate your soul power, right? In Shi stared at Night Sorrow with her beautiful eyes. Why are you so fierce? I just asked you not to go beyond this distance. Are you going to run or what? Am I not treating you well? Night Sorrow was unhappy when he saw In Shi's fierce eyes. I won't go so far as to run away. I just want to know if you can still be merciless to me if I treat you like this. You can fight me whenever you want. You can do whatever you want. In Shi turned around and looked at Yishang. Don't ask like this. Some things will hurt our friendship and also hurt our reputation. I will treat you better, so you should be more honest. Night Sorrow exhaled and said, It seems that you really know how to fight. In Shi was a little disappointed. Chapter 773. Genius 1. Second, remember, love, divided by, go divided by little. I'll provide you with interesting novels to read. Not bad. I wasn't too ruthless. I thought you would do something evil to me, or do something ruthless to me. Love, go little say. In Shi's eyes became much gentler. Evil to me? Just think about it. Night Sorrow said and released the airship. He entered the airship and started to install the spiritual stones. After installing the spiritual stones, Night Sorrow controlled the airship to fly and sat down on the rattan chair. In Shi sat beside Night Sorrow. What do you mean? Are you saying that I'm not even a flower? Night Sorrow looked at In Shi. I'm just joking. Why are you so upset? Let me tell you, when I was with you, I was still a virgin. You can ignore it, but you can't insult me. In Shi was a little angry. Women cared about other people's comments. Night Sorrow meant that she was not even a flower. She couldn't accept it. If it was in the past, she would have slapped anyone who dared to say that to her. But now, only Night Sorrow could slap her. She didn't have the chance to slap Night Sorrow. I'm just joking. Aren't you tired of thinking so much? Night Sorrow looked at In Shi and said, There are some things that I don't have to think about, but some things can't be done just because I don't want to. It's my instinct, In Shi said. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that for a woman, beauty was also a kind of dignity. It was no wonder that In Shi was so upset. After thinking it through, Night Sorrow smiled at Inshi. I'm just joking. You're very outstanding. Truth? Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and asked, Yeah, why would I lie to you? Night Sorrow nodded. I'll admit that I'm in your hands. I'll admit that my virginity is ruined. But you can't eat me and say that I don't taste good. You can't take advantage of me, Inshi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that he shouldn't provoke women. There were some things that couldn't be said. If you're angry, I won't even be able to drink tea? Night Sorrow asked. Are you angry too? Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and asked. Think about it yourself, Night Sorrow replied. Inshi knew that Yishang was unhappy because of her emotional display. Ignoring Inshi, he thought about Night Sorrow and decided not to meet Wu Lingfei, Xiaolanjun, and the others. It wouldn't be good to leave after meeting them. Baidu search, AI go, female sign Xiao, say www.aichuxs. So if it was Night Sorrow alone, he would be able to cultivate anywhere as he did not need to carry anyone. However, he could not do so with Inshi around. Therefore, he decided to go to the island where Inshi used to live because Inshi also needed to cultivate and consolidate her cultivation. When they arrived at their destination, he put away the flying ship. We don't need to set up camp. If we want to rest and recover, we can just enter the space-time pagoda. Okay, I'll listen to you. Inshi looked at Night Sorrow's face. She was still worried that Night Sorrow would be upset about what happened just now. Then, the two of them cultivated in the spatial turbulence of the Realm Sea. The two of them, who had used up a lot of energy, went to the space-time pagoda to recover and consolidate their cultivation. Baidu search, AI go, female sign Xiao, say www.aichuxs. Calm, Night Sorrow, I still want that, Inshi said with a red face. You don't have to lower yourself like this. I was wrong today, but you can't throw a tantrum at me, Night Sorrow said. Inshi nodded. I'll be careful in the future. Then, Night Sorrow meditated to recover. He didn't know how to deal with his relationship with Inshi now. If he said that he had subdued her through a contract, then with that layer of relationship, he felt that it was even more inappropriate to treat Night Sorrow as a servant girl because Inshi was reasonable and obedient. After recovering, Night Sorrow saw Inshi sitting there absent-mindedly. What's wrong? Nothing. Inshi shook her head. She shouted that she wanted it, but Night Sorrow ignored her. She felt that her relationship with Night Sorrow was going to reach an impasse. This wasn't what she wanted. Don't think too much. Recover well. I'm going to cultivate. When I come back to recover, we'll talk again. Night Sorrow could see that Inshi's emotions were fluctuating. She needed to calm down, so he planned to cultivate for a while before coming back. Night Sorrow fought the storm and the soul-devouring beast in the spatial turbulence for a while. Then, he entered the space-time pagoda. Seeing that Night Sorrow had returned, Inshi made a pot of hot tea. Hee, it seems like you've thought it through. Otherwise, where would I have hot tea to drink? Night Sorrow said with a smile. You're so narrow-minded. I'm a woman. Can't you understand women? Inshi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He felt that there was no need for him to be calculative with Inshi. It wasn't a matter of principle. Seeing that Night Sorrow nodded, Inshi smiled. She knew that today's small twists and turns were over. It wouldn't affect anything anymore. Is it funny? Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and asked. Inshi shook her head. It's not funny, but you can listen to what others say. You're easy to get along with. Do I want you to give it to me now? Although you've never been with a man, your methods are top-notch. I'm a man. Do you think I can reject you? Night Sorrow looked at Inshi speechlessly. The two of them went to the big bed. After an intense battle, Inshi began to assist Night Sorrow in his cultivation. 2 hours later, the two of them ended their cultivation. Night Sorrow put on his robes, but Inshi didn't move. Why aren't you cultivating? Night Sorrow asked. I'm a little tired now. There are some parts of my body that need to be relaxed, Inshi said with a red face. It was mainly because Night Sorrow's combat strength was too strong. The impact made her body a little uncomfortable. Inshi cultivated the wind origin body, but she didn't cultivate any external chapter. Some parts of her body were still weak and sensitive. Night Sorrow nodded and went to meditate. He wasn't an amateur in the matters between men and women. He knew some things. Then, the two of them began to cultivate in the spatial turbulence of the realm sea. They consumed their cultivation and stabilized it. As time passed, the two of them went deeper and deeper. It even exceeded the area that Inshi could go deep in the past. In the violent spatial turbulence filled with the power of laws of saints was useless. They had to rely on their combat strength and movement techniques to survive. In the past, Inshi's cultivation level was high, but her body wasn't strong enough. She wasn't fast enough, so she couldn't go deep. Now, her cultivation level was lower, but her body's quality had improved. She was much faster and could continuously use the wind origin flash. Night Sorrow's spatial protective air shield had strong cutting power. He could find the gaps in the spatial turbulence. In addition, he could switch to the void protective air shield, which had strong defensive power. This was something that others couldn't do. In other words, Night Sorrow and she had the ability to survive in the spatial turbulence that others couldn't. After the two of them recovered, she said, "Night Sorrow, can we go deeper? Can we try to get close to Clear Sky City?" Faster, Q. It's true that we can go deeper, but we can't reach Clear Sky City. Therefore, we have to be steady. When the spatial turbulence weakens, we will be the first to enter, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a while. He was really not in a hurry now. Chapter 774. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Night Sorrow thought for a while and nodded. Although there were no flaws in his body and the Myriad Tao Tome's energy, after being nourished by Inshi's wind origin body, his body would become more flexible and perfect. Also, Inshi needed his cooperation to continue strengthening her wind origin body. Baidu search AI Go female sign Xiao. Say www.aichuxs.com. After subduing Inshi became obedient. Night Sorrow naturally wanted Inshi to recover her cultivation as soon as possible and improve her strength as soon as possible. After getting comfortable and enjoying the nourishment of Inshi's energy, Night Sorrow looked at Inshi. "How do you feel now?" "Very good. My body is getting closer and closer to perfection. However, there is no limit to this improvement. The only difference is whether the effect is strong or weak. Besides, after I recover to the level of a 4-star saint, it will be difficult for me to improve any further. After all, I need too much energy." Baidu search love go xiao shaw www.aichuxs.com. Inshi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that there was a huge difference between the early and middle stages of a practitioner. The amount of energy needed to advance was also different. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow asked about the issue of resources. He asked Inshi if he could use resources to increase his cultivation. Inshi shook her head. This was not a problem of resources. The main problem was that it would take a long time to stabilize. Otherwise, there would be a drawback of an unstable foundation. But let's take it slow. In any case, you're a 4-star saint now. When you need to fight, it won't be a problem for you to withstand a 7-star saint. Love, go little, say, Night Sorrow was not in a hurry because he was not as anxious as before. He did not want Inshi to ruin her foundation. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow and she went back to the chaotic streams of space in the realm sea to cultivate. Both of them were fast and agile, so they had no problem surviving in the chaotic streams of space and could even improve their cultivation bases. As time went by, the distance between Night Sorrow and she was increasing. God knows how many space soul eater beasts were killed by the two of them. Entering the space-time treasure pagoda again, Night Sorrow drank the tea brewed by she and pondered. "What are you thinking about?" She sat across from Night Sorrow and asked. "I'm wondering what kind of person could set up such a formation to seal Hao Ian City," Night Sorrow said. "Who knows what happened 10,000 years ago? Don't think too much about it. If there's a chance, we'll go up. If there's no chance for us, then the others won't have a chance either, Inshi said. She was very open-minded now. Night Sorrow planned to go back. He hadn't gone back in a long time. He wanted to go back and see if there was anything going on. Also, his Myriad Tao Tome was going to level up. Inshi didn't have any objections to Night Sorrow's decision. Even if she had any objections, she had to follow Night Sorrow's decision. However, Inshi didn't want to go back. After going back, Night Sorrow would have to face some people and things. He wouldn't be able to cultivate with her all the time. She still needed his help now. Sitting on the airship, they arrived at the border of How High City's Domain C. Night Sorrow put Inshi into the space-time treasure pagoda and then put away the airship. He flew towards the teleportation array of How High City and then directly teleported back to the Sky City. Yuqing was very happy to see Night Sorrow back. She hadn't seen her son for many years and was separated during this period. She couldn't let go of her son. During dinner, Night Sorrow asked the girls about their cultivation. He was relieved when he found out that they had no problems. Then, the family went to the lake to drink tea. Night Sorrow asked Tianyu, who had transformed into a human, about his cultivation and whether he needed any resources. Tianyu shook his head. He meant that he could cultivate. His green rock body's ability to absorb the energy of heaven and earth was very strong. Yuqing asked about Night Sorrow's situation. Night Sorrow told her that he had gone to the domain C to cultivate. He also told her the specific details. It's really a chaotic world. Son, you must be careful. Don't try to be brave. Yuqing looked at her son with some worry. Night Sorrow nodded. He naturally had to listen to his mother's words. In addition, he didn't plan to cultivate in the near future. Night Sorrow had gone to the domain C a while ago. One reason was to check out the situation. Another reason was that Inshi needed to consolidate her cultivation. The spatial turbulence in the domain C was the best place for Inshi to consolidate her cultivation. Next, she would need to cultivate steadily. On the second day, while Night Sorrow was cultivating his spear art, Yiling Huan came. Grandpa is here. Night Sorrow put away the space splitter spear and poured a cup of tea for Yiling Huan. Okay, how are your preparations? The family still needs a month. We can take action in a month, Yiling Huan said. Good. I'll arrange the 7-star sage problem. I'll give Grandpa news in a month. Night Sorrow nodded to Yiling Huan. If there are any problems, you can tell Grandpa. Don't force it, Yiling Huan said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow shook his head and then chatted with Yiling Huan for a while. Yiling Huan left, and Night Sorrow returned to the space-time treasure pagoda. Inshi, you know the situation. When can we take action? Half a month. If I cultivate diligently, my wind essence body can reach the small perfection realm in half a month. My cultivation will also be more condensed and can reach the late stage of the 4-star sage, Inshi said. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that it was inconvenient for him to assist Inshi in her cultivation. He had to inform his family and find a place where there was no one around. He would do his best to assist Inshi in increasing her strength and then kill the 7-star saint. After learning that Night Sorrow was going to leave, Yuqing and Sikong Chiyu were not too willing because Night Sorrow had only been back for 2 days. Mother, Chiyu, senior sisters, the Night Moon dynasty is about to come back. A battle is unavoidable. I'll go and find out the news. I'll be back in a month at most. Night Sorrow naturally could not say that he was going to find trouble with the 7-star sage. In such a situation, Yuqing and the 3 girls naturally could not stop him. After leaving the city in the sky, Night Sorrow went to the mansion in the Tai Ching domain and then entered the space-time pagoda. Inshi, do you know where the 7-star sage will be staying? Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and asked. This is very simple. When I'm ready, we'll go to the 7-star dynasty's 7-star city. If the 7-star sage is in the 7-star city, then there's nothing to say. If he's not, then we'll attack the 7-star dynasty's monarch. If we can't, then we'll kill him directly. The 7-star sage will naturally come out, Inshi said. A young 6x long DX free %, Phi in 0G small v said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that this method was very rough, but it would be very effective. The seven-star sage had no choice but to come out. Then you have to do your best to help me cultivate now. Inchi looked at Night Sorrow and said with a red face. At this moment, in the seven-star palace of the seven-star dynasty's seven-star city, a middle-aged man sat on the main seat. An old man stood beside him, and below them stood 2 rows of the seven-star dynasty's higher-ups. Chapter 775. Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second /small. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Old Ancestor, is the matter so serious? You're a mid-level saint. There's no need for us to be afraid of the Night Moon Dynasty. Xingbatian said, You pig brain, you need to think more about everything. If the Night Moon Dynasty was easy to deal with, how could it have lasted for so many years? Do you think the other dynasties don't have any saints? The Sky Wind Dynasty's Tai Yuan's saint. Chen Yuan may be a 5-star saint, but his strength is mediocre. There are many things he doesn't know. If he knew some things, he wouldn't touch the Night Moon Dynasty even if he had 10 times the guts. 7-star Saint Xing Mingi roared at Xingbatian. Old Ancestor, is the matter so serious? Xing Lo, who was standing below, asked. AI. Moon Emperor Yi Tian is the #1 person in the Tai Ching domain. If he didn't have true strength, do you think the saints of the other dynasties would acknowledge him? Would no one step forward to take down his title? Only that pig Chen Yuan doesn't know anything and dares to do anything. The main thing is that there are too few people who know the truth. This seat is also one of the few who know the truth. Xing Mingi sighed. Old Ancestor, what's going on? Not to mention Xing Lo. Even Xingbatian was confused. Then Xing Mingi said that he had seen Yi Tian twice. The first time was 1,000 years ago. At that time, he couldn't see Yi Tian's cultivation. 300 years ago, he saw Yi Tian at the invincible Venerable Realm, but he knew that it was a soul doppelganger. Then if Yi Tian appears again, it will be a disaster for our dynasties. Xingbatian's face changed. Xing Mingi nodded. He was now thinking about how to deal with this matter. Should he cede land and apologize, or should he continue to endure? First dollar in, ceding land, compensating, and apologizing could guarantee that the 7-star dynasty would not be destroyed. However, it would be embarrassing and there would be a lot of losses. However, if the 7-star dynasty could not take it anymore, it would be the end of the 7-star dynasty. Then could it be that Yi Tian's lifespan has run out and he's already dead? Xingbatian whispered. Bullshit. Even if your lifespan runs out, his lifespan won't. However, since he hasn't appeared for so long, there should be a problem. He should have gone to another dimension, and it's unknown if he can come back. The crux of the problem now is whether we should reconcile with the Night Moon Dynasty or continue to hold on, which is to bet on whether Yi Tian will appear again. Xing Mingi directly expressed his inner struggle. The Night Moon Empire has already been destroyed. Is there a need for us to reconcile? Besides, we will lose a lot of face. Love, go little, say, Xingbatian said. Do you know that Yi Linghuan led his people to retreat to the Night Moon sky? There are still a few emperors alive. Once they touch the power of rules, even without the Night Moon sky, our great dynasties will not be able to withstand them. Xing Mingi said. Xingbatian nodded and didn't say anything. Yi Linghuan was an undefeatable king. His talent was outstanding, and his battle prowess was shocking. Once he broke through to the Saint Realm, it would be a big problem. Let me think about this first. One wrong step, and it will be a disaster. 7-star Saint said. Night Sorrow accompanied Inchi to cultivate. As long as Inchi needed it, he would cooperate with her. However, Inchi was very considerate of Night Sorrow. She only needed Night Sorrow once a day, and rarely twice. Half a month later, Inchi nodded to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, my Wind Yuan body has reached the small success stage. My Zhenqi cultivation is also at the late stage of the 4-star Saint Realm. I can fight. Then let's go, but you have to change your clothes and hair color. Night Sorrow looked at Inchi and said, No need. My Wind Yuan body has reached the small perfection stage. I can change my hair color at any time. Inshi said. At the same time, energy circulated in her hair, and her silver hair turned black. This is also very good, very quiet, and has a different temperament. However, it's less flirtatious. Two different styles. Night Sorrow said. Then which style of mine do you like? Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and asked. If there's no one, then do it here. Silver hair has a different style. It's outside. Black hair looks dignified and elegant. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, Then I'll do as you say. When I go out, I'll change my hair back to black. When I come back, I'll change my hair back to silver. Inshi said to Night Sorrow, Hey, you're so obedient. I can't not treat you well. Then we'll set off. Also, when you fight with 7-Star Saint, if you can fight, then fight. If you can't, then we'll retreat. I can let Night Moon Dynasty delay the battle. Night Sorrow said to Inshi, Don't worry. During this period of time, you've been assisting me in my cultivation. My cultivation has returned from the 7th level Saint Realm to the 4th level Saint Realm. It's my first battle. I have to win some face for myself. Inshi said. Then, Night Sorrow put on the God-slaying team's mask. Inshi and Night Sorrow also put on their veils. They left the mansion and headed towards 7-Star City. After leaving the 7-Star City's teleportation array, Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and said, You have to be careful. If 7-Star Saint is here, I won't have the energy to take care of you when I'm fighting with him. There must be a peak level saint here. Inshi, put the space-time pagoda on you. If I'm in danger, I'll pounce on you and hide. So, as long as you're fine, I'll be fine. Night Sorrow shrunk the space-time pagoda and handed it to Inshi. Inshi took the space-time pagoda and pinned it on her belt. Okay, you've already practiced the skill of pouncing on me to the point of perfection. There shouldn't be any danger. Night Sorrow looked at Inshi speechlessly. He realized that Inshi's attitude had changed. She no longer had that gloomy and cold aura. She had become much more cheerful. Then, the two of them walked towards the 7-Star Palace. That was the core of 7-Star Dynasty. When the two of them arrived at the square, some people appeared in the 7-Star Palace. The one leading them was Xing Mingi. Which saint are you? Xing Mingi looked at Inshi and asked. However, his gaze also landed on Night Sorrow. Normally, Night Sorrow's 4-Star Saint cultivation wouldn't attract Xing Mingi's attention. However, Night Sorrow's blood was surging and his vital essence was soaring into the sky. He had no choice but to pay attention to him. I don't want to talk too much. You're in the way. I'm here to kill you today. Inshi waved her right hand, and the flowing wind sword appeared in her hand. I didn't provoke you, did I? Besides, you're a 4-Star Saint, and you want to kill me. Isn't that a joke? Xing Mingi said. Today, I'll kill a 5-Star Saint for you to see. Inshi turned her head and looked at Night Sorrow, because her words were directed at Night Sorrow. After saying that, Inshi's body shook and a ray of light came out of her body. Then, she appeared in front of Xing Mingi. The flowing wind sword slashed toward Xing Mingi with a sword ray that tore the space apart. Who are you? Xing Mingi retreated. At the same time, he took out a broadsword and stabbed it toward Inshi's flowing wind sword. However, Inshi had already changed the direction of her sword. The sharp sword chi slashed toward Xing Mingi's side. At the same time, the power of the rules of feng shui had already shrouded Xing Mingi. Chapter 776. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Did the 7-Star Dynasty offend someone they shouldn't? Tell us, and we can solve it, Xing Mingi said. Don't talk nonsense with him. Let's kill him first. Night Sorrow could see that the 7-Star Sage was no match for Inshi. Silver's true chi wasn't as dense as Xing Mingi's, but Inshi was too fast. Xing Mingi could only defend passively. You're courting death. Xing Batian roared and rushed towards Night Sorrow. He could see that Xing Mingi wasn't a match for Inshi. Xing Mingi cultivated the 7-Star Mixed Yuan technique. His body was strong and his strength was ferocious. However, she didn't fight him head-on. She relied on her speed to fight. Xing Mingi couldn't use his strength. Knight Sorrow smiled. A bunch of shameless people. Is this how the 7-star dynasty does things? Let's continue to play until your 7-star dynasty is destroyed. After speaking, Knight Sorrow communicated with the Time Pagoda. His body propped up a protective shield. Then, he charged towards Shi with a slash and entered the Time Pagoda. Shi, if you can fight, then fight. Don't let them surround you. Knight Sorrow communicated with Shi. How dare you surround me? I'll kill you with one slash. Shi said. Not only did Knight Sorrow hear it, but the people from the 7-star dynasty also heard it. They didn't dare to surround her anymore. You're not a 4-star sage. Your power of law and speed aren't something a 4-star sage should have. Why did you suppress your cultivation to kill me? Don't you feel ashamed? Being surrounded by Shi, Xing Mingi roared. He couldn't keep up with her speed. His protective shield was shattered time and time again. It consumed a lot of energy. Then, you're attacking the Night Moon Dynasty together with a sage. Aren't you ashamed? Someone asked me to kill you. You should understand. Shi broke Xing Mingi's protective shield with another slash. She even cut a bloody wound on Xing Mingi's body. The sword Qi entered his body and started to destroy it. This was the advantage of speed. In addition, the Saint-level sword Flowing Wind Sword was also extremely powerful and could increase the power of the sword Qi. It's because of what happened back then. Can't we reconcile? Xing Mingi shouted. No way. Why didn't you make peace earlier? Now that they're here, you want to make peace? Shi roared and continued to attack Xing Mingi from all directions. The sword Qi that broke through his protective Qi cover continued to enter Xing Mingi's body. The constant destruction caused by the sword Qi made Xing Mingi's condition worse and worse. He couldn't run away, even if he wanted to. Shi's speed was at least twice as fast as his, and she was attacking him from all directions. The battle went on for 15 minutes, and Xing Mingi was struck in the back. The sword Qi directly penetrated his body. The 7-star saint coughed out a mouthful of blood and roared, King, the 7-star dynasty will depend on you. Reconcile. No matter what the request is, we will reconcile. After hearing the 7-star saint's words, Knight Sorrow hesitated for a moment. Then he asked Shi to stop. Since the 7-star saint kept asking for reconciliation, he wanted to see what the 7-star saint had to say. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want the Saint of the 9 Zones to die. After Shi retreated, Knight Sorrow's body flashed out of the space-time pagoda. Shi stood half a step behind Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow, now that he's severely injured, we can kill him at any time. Let's see what he has to say. If it wasn't necessary, I really don't want to see the Saint of the 9 Zones die. Moreover, he kept asking for reconciliation. I'm not too willing to kill him. Knight Sorrow told Shi the reason why she stopped. Hearing the name Knight Sorrow, the faces of the higher-ups of the 7-star dynasty who were standing on the other side changed. Knight Sorrow, you still came. I'm also a member of the Tianji Tower. Now that my family has reconciled, let's talk, okay? Star Tiger stood out. Love go little say Wong. Choose Star Tiger, because you're a man, I don't have a bad impression of the 7-star dynasty. However, back then, you joined forces with several other dynasties to destroy the Night Moon dynasty. This grudge must be resolved. Knight Sorrow looked at Star Tiger and said, Say it. What do you want us to do? Star Batian stood out and said, You guys discuss first and show me your sincerity. I'll see if it's possible. If it's not enough, then there's nothing I can do. Star Tiger, we're both members of the Tianji Tower. I've given you face, but we must seek justice for the Night Moon dynasty. Knight Sorrow looked at Star Tiger and said, If we can't satisfy you, then we'll continue. He's a grasshopper in our hands. We can kill him at any time. Shi nodded at Knight Sorrow. Then, Star Batian helped Xing Mingi to the side. They began to discuss how to reconcile. After a while, the 7-star dynasty finished their discussion. Star Batian, Xing Mingi, and Star Tiger also came over. Our 7-star dynasty will return all the cities of the Night Moon dynasty and be responsible for the construction of the cities. In addition, we'll We'll take out some resources as compensation. The compensation will be 5 years of our 7-star dynasty's income. Starbatian said. On this basis, I still have some things to say. First of all, those who participated in the war back then must go to the tombstone of the ancestors of the Night Moon Dynasty and burn incense to repent. Second, the 7-star dynasty must not interfere in the war between the Night Moon Dynasty and the other dynasties. Night Sorrow looked at Starbatian and Xing Mingi and said, Okay, we'll do it. Starbatian nodded at Night Sorrow. That's good. I'm not afraid of you going back on your words. I hope you won't give me a reason to come back. Actually, I'm not very willing to reconcile, but I have to consider the overall situation of the 9 regions. Also, reconciliation is my personal idea. I still have to report to the Night Moon Dynasty. They'll have a final decision after a discussion. Night Sorrow said. Then, Starbatian and Xing Mingi both agreed to Night Sorrow's request. Seal off today's news. If the Night Moon Dynasty agrees to reconcile, we'll take over the cities when the time is right. Night Sorrow glanced at the heavily injured Xing Mingi and said. Xing Mingi nodded. Right now, he wasn't qualified to negotiate, and neither was the 7-star dynasty. Let's go. Night Sorrow nodded at Yin Shi and left. After taking a dozen steps, Night Sorrow turned to Star Tiger and said, You owe me another favor. I'll remember. Star Tiger cupped his hands at Night Sorrow. Then, Night Sorrow and Yin Shi left the 7-star palace. Xing Mingi spat out another mouthful of blood. He knew that the 7-star dynasty had dodged a calamity, but the other dynasties were facing a disaster. As for reconciliation, Night Sorrow said it was his personal idea. He felt that Night Sorrow's idea was similar to Night Moon's idea. Old Ancestor, are you all right? Starbatian asked while supporting Xing Mingi. Translator, Endless Fantasy, Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Sigh. I shouldn't have hesitated previously. If I had reconciled directly, there wouldn't be today's embarrassment. The Night Moon Dynasty isn't to be trifled with. Just now, that woman used her 4-star saint cultivation to crush me, a 5-star saint. She's too terrifying. She even listens to orders. Xing Mingi sighed and spat out another mouthful of blood. Inshi's sword chi was still churning in his body. Why would a saint listen to the orders of a sovereign? Starbatian didn't understand. Chapter 777. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. A follower of a saint. Tianji Tower won't arrange a saint to follow him, right? Xing Batian helped Xing Mingi walk towards the 7 Stars Hall while arranging for people to seal off the news. Tianji Tower has a few new saints recently, but there is only one veteran saint, the Wuji Saint. There is no one who matches that female saint. Star Tiger, that young man, Night Sorrow, is unbeatable. Not to mention that he has a saint as his follower. He is a level 4 venerable himself. His spiritual chi is soaring to the sky, and his future is limitless. Xing Mingi reminded Star Tiger. Night Sorrow was very happy. He brought Inshi to a restaurant and asked for a private room. He ordered a table full of dishes and 2 jars of good wine. The 7-star saints have been dealt with. The Night Moon Dynasty can come back to fight. If another saint appears, we'll fight again. It's fast, and the feeling of fighting is great. Inshi took off her veil and said. Night Sorrow looked at Inshi and said, You are addicted to killing. Thank you very much. If you have any requests, just tell me. If I can do it for you, I will do it. What's the point of making a request? Isn't everything I have already yours? What I have now, Inshi said, but she didn't look depressed. Look forward to my cultivation surpassing yours. Once I surpass you, I will withdraw my soul power and give you freedom. Yishan thought for a moment and made his decision. Let's go. Yishan thought for a moment and made his decision. Why did you make such a decision? Inshi was stunned. After spending some time with you, I've realized that you're not that bad. However, I can't let you go now. If you want to take revenge, the Night Moon Dynasty won't be able to withstand your vengeance. I can't risk the safety of the people around me. Night Sorrow spoke his mind. I can understand your mentality. Actually, it's not a big deal. You're full of justice deep down. Some of the things that happened between us weren't out of your own will. You're not treating me badly right now. We can talk about the future in the future. However, I hope that you can give me some space when the time is right. I swear I won't run away. Inshi looked at Night Sorrow and raised her hand to make a vow. Perhaps no one cared about the oaths of mortals, but the oaths of cultivators to the Tao of the heavens were something no one cared about or valued. Cultivators were going against the will of the heavens. They were fighting against the will of the heavens. If they went against the will of the heavens, karma would descend upon them. Heart demons and lightning tribulations would appear. In addition, their soul and state of mind would be tainted. The consequences were very serious. Look at the Chapter S Section W above, O/authentic version. Night Sorrow nodded. Then, he and Inshi ate and drank to their heart's content. The two of them walked towards the teleportation array. When they arrived at the teleportation array, Night Sorrow realized that the seven-star city was under martial law. The teleportation array had been sealed. The person guarding the teleportation array was Princess Sing-Lo of the Seven Stars Dynasty. Sing-Lo looked at Night Sorrow and Inshi furiously. Night Sorrow was wearing the mask that he wore when he went to the Seven Stars Palace. She was wearing a veil, which was also her battle attire. What are you looking at? I want to teleport. Night Sorrow frowned and lifted his chin towards the teleportation array. Move aside. Let them teleport. Sing-Lo was furious because Night Sorrow and she had smashed the dignity of the Seven Stars Dynasty into pieces. Night Sorrow didn't care about Sing-Lo's attitude. Cultivation? Sing-Lo had the cultivation of a level 6 supremacy. Night Sorrow had the ability to fight. In terms of appearance and figure, he had seen many outstanding women. None of the women in his family were inferior to Sing-Lo. What kind of man is he to hide his head and shrink his tail? Sing-Lo muttered, whether he is a man or not, I know that. It's none of your business. Glancing at Sing-Lo, Inshi ignored Night Sorrow who Sing-Lo and took the teleportation array to leave the seven-star city. Night Sorrow didn't care about Sing-Lo's provocation at all because it was meaningless. However, Inshi was unhappy when she heard it. She directly retorted with a sentence that made Sing-Lo dumbfounded. Do you have to be so angry with him? Night Sorrow said after they were teleported to Tai Ching City and exited the teleportation array. As for whether you are a man or not, what kind of nonsense is that? Inshi muttered. At the Seven Stars City's teleportation array, Sing-Lo was still in a daze. Night Sorrow didn't retaliate, but Inshi's counterattack was too powerful. A saintess said that she knew whether Night Sorrow was a man or not. This counterattack was too strong. Aunt, what's wrong? Can't you figure it out? Actually, if he was so calculative, our Seven Stars Dynasty would be in ruins now. Star Tiger walked over and said. Sing-Lo nodded. She knew that this was the truth. As long as they couldn't stop Inshi, the Seven Stars Dynasty would be massacred. She also knew that Night Sorrow stopped because he was looking at the big picture and also because he was giving face to Star Tiger. Maybe there are many people from the Seven Stars Dynasty who can't accept defeat and have hatred in their hearts. Aunt might also have hatred in her heart. However, I don't hate. What our Seven Stars Dynasty did in the past was indeed disgraceful. Star Tiger looked at Sing-Lo and said, hatred is meaningless. You have to pay back what you owe. However, strength determines everything. If you have a big fist, who dares to collect what you owe? If you have a big fist, who dares to not pay back the debt? Sing-Lo also had a set of principles in her heart. Star Tiger smiled. He knew that this matter didn't affect Sing-Lo much. Night Sorrow arrived at the mansion in the Tai Ching domain and put Inshi into the space-time pagoda. Then, he teleported back to the city in the sky and went to Yi Linghuan's residence. He still wanted to tell Yi Linghuan about this matter. He was the one who made the decision to reconcile. He didn't know if Yi Linghuan would accept it. If he didn't, he would really be slapping himself in the face. In the attic where Yi Linghuan lived, Night Sorrow saw Yi Linghuan, Night God Kuang, and Night God Thunder. Night Sorrow is here. Sit. Night God Thunder greeted. Night Sorrow bowed to the three of them and sat down. What's the situation now? Night Moon is ready. We can start the war in 3 days. Yiling Huan looked at Night Sorrow and asked, I made a decision on my own today. Please forgive me, Grandpa and Great Uncles. Night Sorrow stood up and bowed to Yiling Huan and the others. Then he talked about how he had severely injured the Seven-Star Saint and accepted the reconciliation with the Seven-Star Dynasty. Night Sorrow, you didn't do anything wrong in this matter. The Seven-Star Dynasty wasn't the mastermind back then. Killing people is just a matter of nodding their heads. They admit that they are in trouble. They admit that they are in trouble. They admit that they are in trouble until Night Moon offers incense and sacrifices. They admit that they are in trouble. Yiling Huan said to Night Sorrow, Grandpa, there's still some things that I didn't say. Right now, the 9 domains are in great danger. The 9 domains' peak combat power can't be lost easily. Night Sorrow then talked about the Supreme River Space, the Netherworld, and Clear Sky City. He also talked about some of his own speculations. Ling Huan, it seems that we have to work hard on our clan's land in the Night Moon Sea. If the 9 domains are in danger, the Night Clan will have a place to retreat, Night God Thunder said. That's necessary. However, we still have to fight. After all, the news from the Seven-Star Dynasty can't be sealed. Let's take down the Golden Dragon King Dynasty first, then the Green Nether Dynasty, and finally the strongest Red Leaf Dynasty, Yiling Huan said. Night God Thunder and Night God Kuang nodded. They had to take revenge for the destruction of the Night Moon Dynasty. However, they didn't ask how Night Sorrow had dealt with the Seven-Star Saint. If Night Sorrow wanted to say, he would. If he didn't want to say, it would be inconvenient. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.